Boom. Hey, folks, how's everyone doing? Hey, hopefully you're having a good evening. We are not doing like a Friday night frenzy, Friday night fun day kind of thing today because we have more recap to do. And the recapping is going to continue until the recapping is complete. so, we today was a bit of a long day. If you were watching today, a lot of the evidence today was very dry. And so a lot of it we can probably skip because a whole bunch of it was kind of technical, kind of. But what you won't have heard today is still anything actually pointing to Adrian Gonzales because that's not really how the prosecutor's running this case. The prosecutor isn't really pointing to anything that Adrian Gonzales did or didn't do right now. He is instead just going with, isn't this sad? And so there's a bunch of stuff he needs to get in today. And, in terms of like, bullet paths and so forth. And the defense seems to do better with his witnesses than the prosecution does, which is weird. But at any rate, this is a bit of an odd one. I keep watching this one and being like, so when is the prosecution actually going to accomplish what they need to accomplish? And I don't even think they're trying to accomplish what they need to accomplish. Like they just don't. So it is very, very rare that at the end of a prosecution case, you can see just like a successful motion to dismiss. But if the prosecution doesn't actually get off their butt and do something here, I think that's where this might be headed. Like I'm sort of waiting to see enough to convict, like that a reasonable jury could theoretically convict. And I'm not there yet. So to recap this case, what we're talking about, because there's always somebody in the chat who's like, what's going on here? All right, let's do a recap. So the recap here is this is with regards to the Uvalde shooting. And so Adrian Gonzales is charged because he was a school resource officer at the time and one of the people who was first on the scene. So what they've charged him with is essentially cowardice. Like they've charged him with failing to go and engage the shooter. And they're saying, had he gone and started to like shoot at the shooter, that this might have been avoided. And that is, in fact, the proper response to like an active shooter is for the police to get there right away as fast as possible and engage, even at risk to their own safety. But the defense is raising some really good questions on this one. Like, did he actually know where the shooter was? And did he, was he in a position where it could have been extremely dangerous? Because you're probably not going to get convicted of child endangerment if it would have been extremely dangerous to do it. So as an example here, you're not normally required to like rush into a burning building to save somebody or the like. Now, he is a police officer, but the courts have held typically that police officers don't have a duty. So I'm having a bit of a problem with this one because I do believe that this officer was a coward. And I believe that his fellow officers were, for the most part, cowards. I believe that the Uvalde police response is a great shame, and that in fact we should be actively mocking all of the people involved for their failures to act. However, that doesn't necessarily mean that this guy should go to jail. There's a difference between this guy is a sack of crap versus this guy should go to jail. And so far, the prosecution hasn't convinced me that he should go to jail. And keep in mind, I'm a defense lawyer. I'm normally not on the side of the police officers. And quite frankly, I have been harshly critical of these police and their failures to act. Like, I think that it is horrific. I think it is shameful. I think that it is absolutely disgusting. But the prosecution needs to actually build a case here, and they're really not doing that so far. Maybe they'll pull it together in a bit, but right now they're really not landing anything. And so yeah, that's where things sit. So let's jump in. I missed something. Why is he a coward? Because he shows up at the scene of this thing and doesn't go and engage the shooter, right? He doesn't go and try to like arrest or kill or anything the shooter. He just kind of sticks around and radios. So, yeah. But the defense is actually making a good case for this guy did do his best. So let's dive in here. All right, we got Judge Itchy.
Of the Ranger, so you may proceed.
And Your Honor, we have just this minute turned over the additional photograph for Ranger Bride's testimony for their inspection. They're in the process of inspecting that, and so once they've had a chance to do that, we'll be ready to follow them as evidence.
Okay.
So he's like, the prosecution is like, we are just now turning over some additional evidence, and the judge is like, okay, are you kidding me? And the thing is, more of the rant here, I think that this officer should never be a cop again. I think that this officer should, be, but yeah. Yeah. Runkle said the K word. YouTube angry. Yeah, YouTube is going to demonetize this. It just is what it is. So, yeah, people are like, again? Yep, again. This one is less of a big deal, though. All right, so they're reviewing that, and then this judge generally looks like he always has somewhere better to be, and I don't think he's wrong about that. All right.
State's Exhibit 164, could you tell us what we're looking at there?
That is a diagram of Robb Elementary, or at least that building within Robb Elementary. And the highlighted room is 108, which is direct.
Can I say something about this witness? So this witness is a Texas Ranger. He was part of the investigation team here. And he also does all right with knowing his gun stuff. But this guy needs to give up on hair, because I'm sure he looks badass in his hat. And this guy's got enough hair to, I don't know, but he should give up on that. I suspect he would look much better as a, much better as a bald guy as opposed to anything else. So, yeah.
Directly across the hall from 102.
And that's where
You can see he's got this one band. I'm like, oh, that's bad. Just move on.
you continued following the path of bullet fragments. Is that correct?
Correct.
And would you tell us what State's Exhibit 165 is?
That is a photograph of the entrance into classroom 108.
To orient us, is that correct?
Correct.
Okay. And 166?
That is going to be a photograph just stepping inside of room 108, turning to the right and just seeing that part of the classroom.
And which of those walls is adjacent to the hallway?
The wall on the right with the cabinets is
And
going
is
to be
there-
on the back side of that wall is the hallway.
And does one of your rods appear in that photograph?
May I approach, Your Honor? You're going to see one of our flight path rods right here coming through this wall.
All right. So what are the flight path rods that they're talking about? Well, they're basically just like bits of plastic. So what they do is they, whenever there's a bullet hole, they put a rod through it and they try to use that to map out a possible trajectory of the, of all of that. So that's kind of the key thing there, is just trying to figure that out. But also I may get a delivery midstream, and if we do, I will show you what it is. But yeah, so they basically put a length of plastic through, and it's supposed to show you where the shot came from. Now, in order for that to be accurate, in order for that to be reliable, it needs to either leave a very clean and sort of lengthy hole, if that makes sense. So sort of like a thick opening. I'm trying to chat. You need to behave. You need to, if you think about if you have something that's like this thick, right? And it leaves a straight hole through it, then that rod will probably have a pretty good pointing to the, to the point of origin, right? Because it's just, because this is fairly thick. Or if you have thinner materials and they're spaced out and there's a bullet hole in one and then a bullet hole in the other, you can put the rod between them and then it'll point you to where the, where the point of origin is, right? So all of this is used to try to map out and figure out where a shot was coming from, right? And what angle it was pointed in, these kinds of things. So there's a lot of that. And also we're going to do this. Thank you, Uncle Fenley, with saying, thank you for covering this. My contribution for the Pro Bono Fund. Thank you so much. All right. So this guy goes through a lot of that, like a lot of that. And yeah, we're going to skip most of it because it is a long time of just this guy. The government was like, last time when it ended off, the state was like, we have another 4 hours of this guy. And I was like, are you kidding me? And they were not kidding. They have like 4 hours of this guy. So, yeah.
Whether they were complete bullets or bullet fragments or actual shrapnel from glass from the window frame, it's hard to tell exactly, but you can tell some of the directionality of how they're moving.
And Exhibit 201.
Just a closer photograph of one of the bullet defects in the ceiling tiles.
Exhibit 201.
And they put those little stickers on so that you've got, you've got a sense of scale. So, and he just goes through picture after picture, right? Like that's really, so.
Of evidence markers 9, 10, and 11, we actually had to pull this bookcase out to see that. And obviously this is the window frame. The window would have been in this location over here.
And for a reference marker, the tent number 10, is that closest to the wall?
Yes.
So looking at 225, can you tell us which marker this belongs to?
That's going to be, I believe that's going to be number 10 right here. So this is the wall. It's on the floor here. And this is a piece of it appears to be a piece of a copper jacket from a bullet. So it'd be a bullet fragment, but it would be the piece of the copper jacket that covers that lead core of the bullet.
All right, so let's talk about that, because he explained something that is somewhat important, although not super critical. But so this is a great big bullet. This is 300 Norma Magnum, and you can see that the case is brass, and then the projectile is copper in color, right? But you can see, if I show you this way, you can see there's a little tiny opening at the end of it. That little tiny, yeah, this is a cartridge. Little tiny opening at the front. That's because this is actually a hollow point. And you know, the inside of that is lead. So it's a copper jacket with with lead on the inside. So think of it like a burrito. And you're probably going, wait, why am I thinking of this like a burrito? Well, think of it like a burrito in the sense that there we go. Okay, so I was trying to get something out of my out of a little locked thing here. So the burrito filling is basically like the lead, and there's that tortilla of copper on the outside. I will show you with a cartridge that is a little bit easier to see, and so you can see this is this is a Spear Gold Dot. These are now discontinued, but they're a brand of hollow point ammunition. This is in 9mm. And you can see the copper jacketing, but you can see the lead in the, inside the hollow, right? And so what ends up happening is that and there's various reasons why they put the copper jacketing in terms of like getting better ballistic performance, etc. But the critical thing is that often when a bullet hits something, especially a rifle round that is moving at a higher speed, often it will break apart. And especially if it hits something solid, right? Bullets are kind of designed to perform a particular way in meat, right? That's really what they're designed to do, right? But when they hit something solid, they might, for instance, break apart, and you can get, for instance, the copper jacket sloughing off of the lead. The lead can go a different direction. The copper can turn, can go into all sorts of pieces. And those pieces themselves can be lethal, if you get hit with them. And somebody asked a question, what is the difference between a full metal jacket and a copper jacket? A full metal jacket is probably copper jacketing. And just as an example of what a full metal jacket looks like, so I showed you this one where you can see the little opening at the end, right? You can see the little hollow. When you are looking at a full metal jacket, it looks like this at the end. So no hollow, right? Just metal all the way around. For a handgun round, a full metal jacket can look like, and I'm just going to try to peel one of the, I hate this moon clip. All right. Rather than wrestle with the moon clip, I will show you the moon clip as it is. So these are 357, right? And the 357 rounds, these ones are full metal jacket. And you can see the difference in that they have copper all the way around the lead, right? So that's what full metal jacket means. And if you're wondering why there's a war movie called Full Metal Jacket, it is because international conventions say that it is a war crime to use hollow point ammunition. This is a really old, this is a really old sort of convention, but I don't think they'd actually find that was a war crime now, but they did at the time, and it's persisted. So the military tends to use full metal jacketed rounds because we've decided that that's what the military has to use. So, and somebody asked an interesting question there. Are those blanks? Or are you actually having live rounds laying on your desk? These are all live rounds. I have them here specifically so that I can show you things, but they are like, I don't actually have the gun that these go, or any of the guns that these go in. That, here, those are in a safe. But if you put this into a gun and you pulled the trigger, it would make a hole in something. So, yep, live rounds. I'm showing you guys with this. YouTube doesn't have a problem with me showing ammunition, but I can't show you a firearm. So, when did your interest in firearms begin? Depending on how you, either as a child or law school, depending on where you want to start measuring things from. So anyway, yep.
And 226.
Just another photograph of 8, 9, 10, and 11.
By the way, the audio in this is real chunky, and there's not a whole lot I can do about that. It just is what it is. But I am going to switch off my VPN. Just yeah, the audio is what it is, and there's not a whole lot I can do about it. Oh, can I tell you guys a story about the Galapagos and traveling to, traveling to Ecuador? So, yeah. So I'm at the airport and we're heading to Ecuador, and I'm hitting the airport security line, and they're like, there is something in your coat pocket that we need to find. And I'm like, okay. And usually when they say there's something in your coat pocket we need to find, it's like my keys are generating a weird shadow or something on the x-rays. So they want to see them. And I'm like, okay, whatever. No big deal. No, whatever. Anyway, I had live ammunition in my coat pocket, and they were like, and I was like, oh shit. And they're like, yeah, we're going to keep this. I'm like, please do. Yes. And they let me get on the plane, but they did keep the ammunition. They were like, yeah, no, we're keeping this. So that was in the Edmonton airport. Fast forward, and we are going to, we are like boarding a plane from the Galapagos back to Ecuador. And they start going through my pockets in detail, looking for something. And I'm like, oh shit. Is there another round there? Because they found one out of Edmonton, and they're like digging. And eventually they pulled out like a little brass bolt. And for a second, they pull out this little brass thing, and I'm like, oh shit. And it was a bolt. It was like a fastener. So not ammunition. And and I was like, breathe, because the penalties for having ammunition in Ecuador are not it's kind of a big deal. So I was like, yep. Anyway, it all worked out. I had a great trip, but yeah.
27.
There's going to be a piece of debris on the floor with our evidence marker there showing the size of it.
228.
It's going to be this is a photograph of the desk area. This is going to be the entrance door into the classroom. So to orient the jury, this photograph would have been taken closer from the window area, looking back toward the door, and evidence marker 5 and 12 on these desks.
229.
It's going to be a close-up of exhibit number 12.
And then 230.
It's going to be a piece of debris, either a jacket or a piece of mini blind, some type of shrapnel.
That is jacketing. That 100% that's jacketing. He's like, this is either a piece of copper jacket or it is from a mini blind. I'm like, no. That is copper jacketing right there. So, yeah, he is going to go through hundreds and hundreds of pictures here just to identify them. Why is he doing this? Because these pictures have to go to a jury. And so the jury's got to, the jury's got to get them cleared. But yeah, we're going to skip over like an hour of that.
And exhibit 258.
This is going to be a bullet defect in.
By the way, this guy had to prep for something. I'm sure this guy had to prep for like 10 hours just to be good enough to, to go through every single one of these pictures, because he's like, I don't want to get any of these wrong. So yeah, I'm taking it up to 1.25.
The wall. Again, on the opposite side of this wall is going to be the hallway.
And exhibit 259.
That's going to be a closer angle of the bullet defect in that wall.
And exhibit 260.
This is going to be a view from the hallway looking into the classroom 105.
And 261.
That's going to be what appears to be a bullet defect from outside in the hallway, looking at the top left corner of that door going into 105.
And once again, across from that room would be 111. Is that correct?
Correct.
Okay. So based on the glass being shattered in this room 105, as well as these defects in the walls, are you able to determine the origin of that one fragment in 105?
The one fragment. So the windows in this room were not shattered by bullets coming from the exterior to the interior. This one appears that the bullet came from the inside, from traveling into this room from the hallway, going into the room. So it was from the interior of the building.
And how are you able to exclude that it didn't come from the shattered window
Because there were no bullet defects that we found in the window
itself? Okay. Pass the witness.
All right, so now he's done with the witness, and I love this grin that you get from the defense lawyer. He's like, oh, good. Yay. So, yeah, here we go.
Yeah, see.
Thank you.
Yes, sir. Major, we briefly shook hands yesterday, right?
Yes, sir.
Okay, well, my name is Nico Hood. I represent Adrian. One of 3 lawyers represent Adrian. You've done this before. You testified, so I'm just going to jump right in.
Sure.
Okay. You're obviously qualified as a trajectory analyst, correct?
Yes.
Okay. And I think you described to the jury yesterday what that is, but you're trying to determine pathway of a bullet, a trajectory analysis from its origin to its endpoint, correct?
Correct.
And often they use your skill set with wound path analysis, right?
Yes.
Right, because it's the next step. If somebody unfortunately is struck by that trajectory, then the wound path should match the trajectory of the starting point and the end point where it rested.
Yes.
Okay. What training?
Should, but they're going to say something that caught my attention because it is very accurate and something that people don't usually estimate.
Does an individual like yourself go through to do this type of analysis?
Well, as a Texas Ranger, we all have to go through a 3-week advanced crime scene school. We do lots of continuing education throughout our careers. One of the schools that I went to was a 10-week course of study at the University of Tennessee, the National Forensic Academy. That included shooting reconstruction, and those are the main, I guess, the main educational courses that I've been through.
I mean, a 10-week course is actually a pretty significant course, right? I would love to throw some shit at this guy's training, but a 10-week course, okay.
Okay. And I think you said it on direct. I mean, this is not an exact science.
Are you talking about what, tracing the path of a bullet?
Yes, sir. I'm sorry, bad question. Yes, sir. Tracing the path.
Bullets do weird things sometimes.
I know you just said that yesterday. They do.
Okay, let's talk about that statement. Bullets do weird things sometimes. This surprises people because bullets sometimes do spooky shit. And what I mean by that is that I had a file where somebody shot themselves like that. And the exit point for that particular bullet, was by their elbow. And you think, wait a minute, how do you get from here to elbow? And the answer is well, it went down the body and down the arm and out. Bullets do weird things sometimes. There is a case where there were some robbers at a gas station, and they pulled out the 4 employees who were at that gas station, lined them up, and went down the line, shooting each person in the back of the head. Each one had an entry point at the back of the head and an exit point out the front of the head. One of them lived to testify and identify the, and to identify the killers. He showed up at their trial. He was able to be like them. How did that happen? Well, bullet enters the back of the head, bounces off the skull, and then tunnels under the scalp until it finally exited out his forehead. And so he had a scar at the forehead. He had a scar at the back of his head. And that bullet never entered his skull. And the impact knocked him out, which was kind of a surprising thing, or kind of a lucky thing for him, because if it hadn't knocked him out, they would have shot him again, right? So because he was knocked out, it saved his life, and he was able to wake up and then testify against them because they thought they'd killed him. I have seen, I have seen other case studies where you see bullets go and do things like, there are case studies where people have an entry wound, and what people initially think is a second entry wound, because the bullet hits them, turns around, and leaves, going in and out. In, U-turn, out. So when this guy is saying that bullets do weird things sometimes, he's not wrong. And people sometimes very much don't understand how weird they can get. Now, I mean, usually usually they fly in a pretty straight line. And by a straight line, I mean they go, they fly out, they're affected by gravity, so they fall. Usually when people are shooting, it's going up, hits a midpoint, and then comes down, like people shoot in an arc. But typically, it'll go in the same path. But sometimes they do weird stuff. And it's really important to understand, or at least have an awareness of this when you're looking at anything ballistically, because sometimes people have weird injuries. Sometimes people have weird, things, and it can be situations where, something bounced off a rock or, went through, like, just about anything can happen in very strange ways. So I thought that was worth like calling out as a moment to discuss, because I thought it was like, oh wow, like that's important. And you see he's got a big grin because it does some yeah.
And so they're educated guesses.
Yes.
And you said they can go in a million different directions. Once it hits something, bullets are just.
And I love the blue suit. And I say that because I also often wear a blue suit. The blue suit and red tie is a good combo. I don't like Gonzales's tie, but oh well.
They do things that are weird.
They can.
Often unexplainable.
Yes.
Okay. So now I want to direct your attention back to what you did there. And so you did this analysis. Is this the extent of what you did during your assignment or your duties of what you were given?
Are you talking about at Robb Elementary?
Yes, sir. At Robb, from the rooms that you looked for evidence. That's all you did?
I did a few other things there, but that was my main assignment.
Did you have anybody assist you in this endeavor?
There were some other rangers that assisted, yes.
So you made the determination that the majority of the defects that you saw on the west side of the building came from outside.
Correct.
And you were mentioning things about the frame of the window and the indention of the entrance versus the exit. That's called beveling, right?
Correct.
Yeah. And will you explain to the jury what beveling is?
So beveling is, again, like, I guess, could we pull up that photograph of
Sure.
one of the window frames?
Do you remember what number that is? Any one of the window frames?
Yes. Any one of them showing that exterior defect and the interior defect.
They're right here. 183, for the record, Judge, it states exhibit 183, 184, and 185. I think we have it here. That's 183, Ranger.
That will work. Your Honor, may I approach the screen?
Yes, sir.
So in this one, if the bullet were to come from the exterior of the window, so from this side of the window coming out, this is an exit defect. So as it passes through this, surface, it makes the entrance defect and the exit defect. It bends the metal, like I talked about earlier. It doubles it out. So.
All right. So think about, when he says that you can tell the difference between an entrance defect and an exit defect. What do I have here? This will work. All right. So, we got a bit of cardboard. And we've got a cartridge, but we're just going to use the bullet. And so, like, if I shove the bullet portion of the cartridge through the cardboard, what you can see is on one side, it's sort of in what you can see if I made it bigger, is on one side, you can see it sort of deflects in, but on the other side, it pushes material out, right? It bends it in the path that it is going. And so, a lot of this stuff sounds complicated. It's very simple, right? It's very, very straightforward. So that's kind of the idea there.
Kind of makes it to where you can tell the direction. As the bullet passes through this surface, it bends the metal coming out.
And so, thank you, sir. You got to see. And so, an entrance defect is smaller and cleaner. Is that a fair statement?
Generally speaking.
Yes, sir, generally. And then an exit defect is usually larger and not as clean.
Correct.
And so we can talk about that, right? Imagine like a watermelon full of steak. As the bullet passing through it, if it's an expanding round like a hollow point, the actual bullet portion of it, not the whole cartridge, of course, because the whole cartridge doesn't fly out, but the actual, it goes and it makes a fairly small hole, right? It makes what would, like, this is, when you look at, like, compared to a finger, it's not that big, right? It's pretty small comparatively. But as it goes through the material, even if it's not a hollow point, even if it's just a full metal jacket, it will gather, like, bits of flesh and bone and so forth, and push them along or break them and project them. And so when it gets to the other side, the exit point, it's got all of this other material that's also moving with it, right? So the exit tends to be, all of that other material is getting pushed out. And similarly, if there's like bone or something that it's hit along the way, it will, that will also exit as it goes. Now, if the round is a hollow point and expands, then it may expand to several times the initial diameter, right? And so, and sometimes they can look like a flower blossoming or something like that. And so that also leads to a larger exit wound and a more ragged exit wound. So that's why they're saying that, right?
Irregular, I guess, is a better word to use.
Yes.
Okay. And this is why you said, I think at the end of your testimony, that there were some defects in room, I thought it was room 105, that you believed were coming from the inside of the building.
Yes.
And when you use those trajectory rods, they're trying to trace back. So you're kind of start from the end point. You have to know where the entrance and the exit is, or the beginning and the ending. And you're trying to connect those lines together. And that's why that rod needs to be straight.
Correct.
You can also use a laser.
Yes.
When does someone like you decide when to use a laser or a rod?
I could have used a laser here. There were so many bullet defects, but you can use a laser at any time during this process.
And that's just more of a preference?
Yes.
Is one more reliable than the other one?
Well, lasers are obviously, they're going to be straight. Rods, you do have a little bit of play in them. Sometimes we have the plastic cones that you can put inside of a bullet defect that the trajectory rod will fit in, so it kind of centers it more in the bullet defect itself.
And on two different occasions, at least that I heard, you talked about the trajectory of the bullet going through a window, through a classroom, through a hallway, or into a ceiling. It kept traveling.
Correct.
Is that correct? And so when you see what appears to be the end of the trajectory, it could have kept going. You never know, right?
Unless, I'm sorry, if you.
What I'm saying is, if you saw a defect in the ceiling tile, you obviously don't know the bullet kept going. You didn't find the actual bullet.
Some of those, yes. There were some defects up above the ceiling tiles. Sometimes it was hard to determine exactly where they came to rest. But passing through those ceiling tiles, yeah, there was rafters up there and all kinds of things.
And
so let's consider this issue, which is overpenetration, right? And overpenetration is a very substantial issue for defensive shootings, right? Like, and defensive use. So let's imagine there was somebody standing right there. Now you can't see it, but there's a wall just a little bit there. And if I turned and fired in that direction, it is likely that the projectile would go through the wall and potentially into another, somebody who's standing on the other side of it. And so I'm not likely to want to shoot that direction because that room, my wife is often in, right? And so this becomes a consideration because let's imagine you're in an apartment building, right? if you fire a gun in the apartment building, well, you're surrounded on all sides possibly by other apartment buildings, and there's the possibility that somebody on the other side could be injured. There was a case here in Edmonton where there was a guy who was out there and he threatened police. He he was like attacking the police, and the police engaged in they shot the guy, right? And so when they shot the guy, the bullets passed through the guy or missed the guy, passed through the wall of the apartment building that was behind the target, and killed a guy who was just there, like just chilling in his own apartment. He got shot in from bullets that went through his wall. So, yeah. Now, the reason why the defense is bringing this up is because they're trying to say that they're trying to establish where the shooter was, to say the shooter was not anywhere near or not within view of their client, right, of Mr. Gonzales. So that's why this is coming in.
As a side note, the government's not going to contest us on this. The person responsible
Yes, 9 mil.
for these defects and causing this damage is dead, correct?
Yes.
Okay. It's not Adrian sitting at the table with us.
No, to my knowledge, no, absolutely not.
And you're correct, by the way.
Yes.
And so at some point in there,
and they're going to ask a lot of different witnesses this same question. They're like, the person who committed the murder is dead, right? And is, so yeah.
Investigation, or you're part of this investigation, you heard that from the inside of the school, there were some rounds that went outside one of the windows on the backside, on the east side.
I'm sorry, can you repeat that?
Room 111 and room 112 had, there was a bullet or bullets that went out of the building from 111.
I did not do any of the evidence gathering or evidence analysis in rooms 111 and 112.
But you understand there was defects outside of the building.
Are you talking about that came from 111 or 112?
Yes, sir.
Just maybe what I've heard through some of the other investigation, but I did not, I did very little in rooms 111 and 112 past identification of the victim.
But you would agree that you are considered and you have testified as an expert in trajectory analysis in the past?
Yes.
So may I approach the witness?
Yes. Yes.
Shooter was shooting 223.
Two for identification only. You recognize the defense too, do you not?
I do not.
Would you, let me get a bigger statement.
Okay.
Thank you, Chief. I'm also showing you, Ranger, State's Exhibit 1. Now, this is Robb Elementary.
Okay.
You recognize it?
Yes.
So she has the type of it.
Oh, I'm sorry.
And this is the west side of Robb Elementary,
Yes.
and this would be considered the south side.
Yes.
And this is the east side.
Yes.
And then room 111 roughly, this is the State's
Mhm.
exhibit, but is in here, room 111 and 112 on the east side.
Yes.
And these are what they call wings of the building. These are extra buildings on the campus.
Yes.
And you might not know, but they're lettered from A to E. This would be Echo E, correct?
I'll take your word for it. Yes.
Okay, yeah, well, they're lettered. Thank you for that. I appreciate that. And so on Defense Exhibit 2, this is a close-up of what? Would you agree that's a close-up of a defect? Regardless of where it's at, that's a defect.
It appears to be, yes.
Okay. And did you do the analysis on Defense Exhibit 2? I'm sorry, Defense Exhibit 2 defect.
I did not.
Do you know if anybody did the analysis on Defense Exhibit 2 defect from building E?
I don't know.
Are you aware that these are metal buildings, so defects or trajectories will affect metal different than other surfaces?
I'd say that's a fair statement.
And metal is metal is not a cover. I mean, it's more concealment. It's not going to protect you from a bullet.
Depends on what kind of metal. Are you talking about like the thin metal building?
The thin metal buildings, yes, sir.
Yes, I would agree with that.
Okay, so this is also something that shows up in movies all the time and annoys gun people, but it's worth talking about when you're talking about an actual case. So in a movie, people will take cover behind like a car door or even like a car body. And the thing is that a car body is not cover. A car body is partial concealment because if you shoot a car, even with like 9mm or whatever, it will quite easily go through one door, through the middle of the car, and then out the other side. So these like school portables and that kind of thing, those are not cover. Bullets will go right through them. Now, Grass Folk says, is the engine cover? Yes, the engine will probably start something. Oh, am I having audio problems again? Nope, I'm not having audio problems. Seems to be coming through. Okay. All right. Somebody was saying muted, and I'm like, some people are saying they can't hear me. Some people are saying they can. So whatever. Okay. So yeah, the engine block should stop around, right? But the engine is, it's only so big, right? So you gotta consider that, right? You gotta consider that the engine isn't like the entire front of the car or something, and that a lot of the parts of the car will just sail right through, like a bullet will sail right through. But yeah, the point that they're making is they're looking at a particular round and they're trying to determine like, what and how it was fired. So
Judge, this time we'd like to offer into evidence Defense Exhibit 2.
Any objection?
I don't believe he'd been able to identify it. He said he didn't work on that defect. He didn't see it. If they're offering it just to say it's a defect, I have no objection.
Well, yeah, they're going to want it in later, I'm sure, so we want it in.
The other,
Was it no objection?
all right, it's admitted.
Can we publish to the jury, Judge?
Yes.
Okay, so that defect right there, if that were to be on the top part, because that's where the electrical is, on the top part of building E, then they, excuse me.
So that says CR24BD1, I'm pretty sure, but it looks like CRZY. It looks like crazy BD1. So I'm like, okay, all right.
You testified earlier that whenever there's a defect up higher, usually the source of that trajectory is lower, correct?
I think it depends on each circumstance. I mean, depending on what other evidence is present to indicate that that the muzzle of that weapon would have been lower.
Sure. I mean, obviously, if somebody was in a building shooting down, that could be a possibility,
Yes.
right? But there are no buildings higher than this structure around Robb Elementary that you recall.
That I can recall now.
So if somebody is on the ground and the muzzle is lower and shooting up, then the defect would be higher on a building.
Generally speaking, yes.
Right.
All right. Why does this matter? Why? Because they are one of the issues that the defense is trying to establish. So the prosecution has a theory that this particular bullet hole means that this guy was firing from a particular spot. And the defense theory is that it doesn't mean he was firing from the spot the prosecution thinks. It means that he might have negligently fired, like accidentally fired, because he's not handling the gun that well, right? So yeah.
And you yourself, hopefully we'll get someone else to talk about this, but you yourself did not, that's not.
Yeah, crazy boy it looks like. And I'm like, that's a hell of a, if that was just random graffiti, that's a hell of a thing there.
Your evidence there, your
That's
evidence
correct.
marker.
No.
But a defect on a building like that, behind a structure that had a lot of gunfire, it would be very difficult to pinpoint where that came from. Was that a fair statement?
I think there's a lot of variables with that. It would kind of depend on if there's another corresponding defect on the opposite side of that wall, or even within that wall, if we could see where the bullet passed through this surface and made contact with another surface. If there is a corresponding defect, that gives us 2 points of reference to put a trajectory rod or a laser.
But correct, that is right. Okay, but if you don't know if that was done on this defect.
I do not.
If somebody on the east side, may I approach, Judge?
Yes.
If somebody on the east side in front of this building, sorry, the west side.
South.
This is south. I'm so sorry, Ranger, you're right. I'm wrong. So on the south side of the building, correct. made a claim that there were multiple shots fired at that individual, is it fair to say that we should see defects like this multiple times in this area?
Okay, can you, I guess, repeat that? I want to make sure my logistics are correct.
That's okay. If somebody, as an expert, if somebody is
I found that to be a very confusing question too, but yeah.
claiming there are multiple shots on the west side of the building here, in front of the structure.
This is the west side.
I'm getting myself confused. You're right. This is the west, on the south side of the building.
Okay, so if a suspect is, or if a person is here,
If a witness is on the south side of the building,
okay,
claiming that a suspect fired multiple rounds at them on the south side of the building,
okay,
we should see defects somewhere in one of these buildings, E, D, or even C.
if it struck one of those buildings, yes. I mean, obviously it could pass through as well, but if it struck one of those buildings, that would make sense. That would be logical.
But also let's talk about the pass through, because you said something. If those rounds passed through, there would be defects passed in structures behind that, right?
Correct.
So in my initially confusing example, sorry about that. If somebody was on the south side of Robb Elementary and made a claim that a suspect shot multiple rounds at this individual, we should see defects here. And that you said initially, yes.
Possibly, yes.
Unless they passed through, but then we should see defects here.
If it struck that, not necessarily, because again, bullets do weird things, depending on the trajectory of it. If it's going higher and over the building, if it goes lower and into the ground, there may be a bullet in the ground. So in that general direction, if it's on a level plane, generally speaking, shooting from that direction to this direction, again, perfect conditions, level plane, yes, there may be some bullet defects on these buildings over here.
And bullets don't just go forever, right?
Correct.
And that's the reason why on New Year, there's many warnings that people don't shoot a gun up in the air, because that bullet to get shot up, even though they don't intend this, has to come down somewhere.
Correct.
So bullets shot in directions, they have to go somewhere. They don't just disappear.
Correct.
And so that's all I was saying. If somebody is on the south side claiming a suspect shot multiple rounds this way, multiple, not one, multiple rounds, we should see some defects over here.
Possibly.
Okay, so basically what the defense just did is they used the prosecution's expert to eliminate or to gut part of the prosecution's own theory. And it is really well done. They're like, okay, so if you had somebody who was standing in this place where the prosecution would really like him to be standing, and he was shooting here, according to the prosecution's theory, we should see bullet holes over here, right? And the guy's like, yep, that makes sense. And so the lack of bullet holes over there does really good things for the defense by putting the shooter further away and not in sort of the direct path.
I want to direct your attention, because I think the government asked you a little bit about where some shells were laid. Hold on 1 second, Major, I'm sorry. Before I move on to the shells where they were laying, but seeing defects on structures behind the example that I gave you would corroborate this individual's, in our example's, claim that they were shot at multiple times on the south side of the building.
If that were a bullet defect that you showed me, yes, that would lend credence
Not
to
that one particularly. I'm just saying, if in my example before that, we talked about an individual making the claim that there were multiple shots at them. There should be, if there were defects in the structures behind that person, that would corroborate the person's claim that they were shot at multiple times.
If those defects were present, yes.
Yes, sir. Now, I want to direct your attention now to some pictures the government went over with you yesterday on the placement of some outside shells. And when I say shells, that's the casing, right?
Yes.
So when a gun is fired, if it's a semi-automatic, it has to extract the shell once the bullet is.
Correct.
If I have a revolver, that's not going to happen.
Correct.
And a revolver involves a double action where you pull and it winds it up, and then the hammer comes down and hits the primer, and the bullet will go out.
Correct.
But there's
I was like, okay, so let's talk about gun actions, because this made me wince. So you've got a handgun. It might be, and this is more of a thing with revolvers, but there are some, there are some, semi-autos that have like single action, double action, elements to them. So you've got a revolver. He says that the revolver is like a double action. Maybe, because there are single action revolvers. They're a quite common thing. So what is the difference? Well, I've got a gun which I would love to show you right now, but I can't because it's YouTube and we're on a live. But it is a famous, it's a clone of a famous gun, which is a single action army. Why is it called a single action army? Because it's single action. And what does that mean? It means that pulling the trigger itself only fires the gun if you have manually cocked the hammer. If you have not cocked the hammer and you pull the trigger, it does nothing because the trigger is single action. The only action it has is to release the hammer. Single action. But you can have double action firearms, and the double action army, like the double action firearms, I don't think there's a double action army. Single action army was, the army pistol, but a double action like revolver, if you pull the trigger, it will cock the hammer and then release the hammer. And so double action, it does two things. It pulls the hammer back and then it drops it. Now, when you have semi-automatic firearms, some of them will function in, in double action mode. Some of them will function in single double. And so what I mean by that is, so if the hammer stays back and then allows you to drop it, then it sort of functions in both. So yeah, it's, this made me wince because I'm like, no, he's like, the revolver's double action. It's like, it might be, but it might not. So.
Correct.
It has to extract the shell once the bullet is.
Correct.
If I have a revolver, that's not going to happen.
Correct.
And a revolver involves a double action where you pull and it winds it up, and then the hammer comes down and hits the primer, and the bullet will go out.
Maybe.
Correct.
But there's not going to be an extraction of a shell that's going to stay in the cylinder.
That's correct.
And in the old days, the Rangers used to carry single sixes, right, where you have to pull it back every time and then shoot. It's a single action.
It's been a few years, but yes.
Well, yes, you don't look that up.
It's been a few years. It's been like 30 years, I think. Oh, right. Share screen. My bad.
Trust me. But now a semi-automatic is where someone can pull the trigger repeatedly, and then it will continue to be fed in through the magazine. It's not a clip, it's a magazine, and the bullet will be sent out, and then the casing or the shell will be extracted.
Yes.
And every weapon has a different, well, depending on the manufacturer, a different extracting mechanism.
Yes.
Handguns extract their shells different than maybe a long rifle.
Yes.
And when I mean long rifle,
Although
what do we mean
the
when we use
concepts
term
are
long
fairly
rifle?
similar.
A long rifle is usually just going to be a larger weapon. It's going to have a stock and a longer barrel on it.
Do we call a deer rifle a long rifle?
Yes.
All right, let me say or do something I'll show you a difference that will sort of illustrate an annoyance that gun people have with sort of casual discussion. And so I'll just show you this here. Okay, so in casual discussion, people will say clip when they mean magazine. So let me show you what a magazine is. This is a magazine. It is a magazine for a Shadow 2, CZ Shadow 2. And the magazine is basically like a box. And it has a base plate. It has the magazine body, this part here. It has a spring. And it has a follower. And so this thing, as it is, when you put it in the gun, the gun feeds the bullets off of this, right? So that's a magazine. However, a clip is a real thing. A clip is an actual, so this is a clip. And you can see the clip is different, right? The clip, it literally, the cartridges are clipped into it, right? they are clipped into it. Now, the way clips usually, like what they're usually done for is they're usually to feed a magazine. And so when you've got the clip, the way what you would do with, like, this is a clip for an SKS. And so the SKS has little guide notches. And so you put the clip into the guide notches, and then it sits like this. And then you push down at the top and you push all of the cartridges into the magazine that is built into the gun. So usually, not always, but usually a clip is designed to put rounds into a magazine. So gun people will get annoyed if you call this a clip, because it's not actually a clip. This is a magazine. So that's what the distinction is that they're drawing here. And yeah, it's a useful discussion, or useful point to know, because if you're lawyering, the last thing you want to do is, say to this, a guy like this, oh, right, and then, that's a spare clip, and he'll say, no, that's a magazine. And you're like, what's the difference? And he's like, eh. And you don't want the expert to be mocking you, right? You want to know the guns at least as well as the expert, or close enough that he's not like able to make fun of you at the time. And yeah, this is a good way to think of it. So the clip is shoving a row of Pez, and the magazine is the Pez dispenser. Yep. Not all, like some relatively few guns use clips in any capacity, but yeah.
Also call an AR-15 or an AK-47 a long rifle as well.
Correct.
And so with a long rifle that's not a bolt action, which is a deer rifle, is a bolt action, right?
Correct. Well, some of them are, yes.
Some of them are, right? Some are semi-automatic these days.
Yes.
But when I was hunting younger, it's bolt action, where you shoot it and then you pull the bolt up, you enter another shell, another round in there, and then you can fire it.
Yes.
Okay. But an AR-15 is a semi-automatic.
Correct.
And so you can shoot that weapon as fast as you can move your finger.
Correct.
And so when you're,
I mean, for the most part, if you could theoretically move your finger fast enough, you could potentially outpace the gun, but your finger doesn't go that fast. So, yeah.
doing that, both casings are being extracted.
Correct.
May I stand up briefly, Judge?
Yes, sir.
And so there's a difference if one of these officers or yourself is tactically holding the rifle in your armpit, if you're coming into a room, versus, and I'm not making light of this at all, I'm just, the only thing I can think of is like a Rambo, where you're holding it low, shooting.
Okay.
Okay, so if I'm coming in this way, it will, and if I'm in the same
When he says Rambo, he means like firing from the hip, right? So, yeah.
position, I'll come up here so the jury can see. If I'm in the same position and I'm shooting, I'm only going low because in my head I don't even like to pretend to point a weapon at somebody. So if I'm coming down and I'm shooting this way, it's going to extract the shells this way differently than if I was holding it perhaps Rambo style.
Generally speaking, on ejection of those cartridges,
Yes,
like that, I think there's a lot of variables that go into that, and I think there've been, my experience in training, there's been a lot of studies saying that, are they going to all be the same? No, they're not going to be the same.
Right. But what I'm saying is, if I shoot from here and I do another round of firing from here, because of the distance of where I'm holding the weapon and the angle of where I'm holding the barrel or the muzzle, it's going to extract the casings perhaps in a different location.
Perhaps, but I think that'd be difficult for me to say accurately.
Well, I guess that's another point. It's just difficult for anyone to say accurately where shells are at. We have to look at the totality of the circumstances. Is that a fair statement?
Yes.
And that's a term of art in law enforcement. Is
Yes.
that a fair statement?
Definitely.
What does the totality of the circumstances mean? Can you explain that to the jury, please?
So totality of the circumstances means that you just have to take everything into consideration. There are going to be a ton of variables in any circumstance, and any of those variables could affect the outcome.
And what happens if we don't take everything into consideration when we're looking at a situation?
You could possibly miss evidence and get it wrong.
Yeah, and that's right. And so the goal is not to get it wrong. Is that a fair statement?
Correct.
Okay. And so now I want to direct your attention to State's Exhibit 112. May I approach, Judge?
Yes.
And so this is the west side of Robb Elementary.
Yes.
And then this is the south side of Robb Elementary.
Correct.
Okay. And then we can see there's these AC units here, correct?
Yes.
And so if someone is behind the AC units and somebody was shooting from behind this fort, those AC units would depending how strong they are, either cover or concealment for sure.
It could be, yes.
Will you explain to the jury what the difference is between cover and concealment?
So cover and concealment, it's a term that we use whenever we're talking about basically trying to get out of the way of a bullet. If I had a sheetrock wall between me and someone who's shooting at me, that would be more cover, that would be more concealment rather than cover. Cover is if it were a brick wall, like a cinder block wall, something that a bullet couldn't pass through, that's good cover. A sheetrock wall, that's going to be concealment. I'm hidden, but that bullet can still go through that surface.
So the concealment is you're concealed, so it's harder for me to aim at you. Cover means you're protected.
Correct.
So if somebody was shooting here, and give me some hypotheticals.
Okay.
Then that person, if there was someone behind these AC units, I would have to stand out. If that shooter would have to stand out over here into the grass to get a different angle and line of sight.
I think that's fair. Yes.
We explain to the jury what line of sight means.
Line of sight just basically means what you can see.
Right. And that's one of so you don't ever shoot at something you can't see if you're trying to safely shoot, correct?
Correct.
And so if there was someone behind these AC units, I would have to move out to the right of them, go further south to get line of sight on somebody on the other side.
That's accurate.
And if I was shooting, now hypothetical, if I was shooting at someone on the other side of those AC units, and I was discharging a semi-automatic, we would see these casings further south. Is that a fair statement?
Not necessarily. Again, there's going to be variables on where the person was standing, how the weapon was held.
That's what I was asking you earlier, right?
Sure.
Okay. So let me make real specific. If I'm trying to shoot someone on the other side of these AC units, we've talked about that. I would need a better line of sight, so I would, in our hypothetical, would move south. Correct?
Correct.
In our hypothetical, if I moved south to shoot, what evidence? If you were trying to prove that I shot at that person, what evidence would you look for of me shooting at that person behind the AC units?
So the reason why they're doing that is to basically say that, that the shooter wasn't in this spot, right? And that's because if you go south, that would be like, that's where you're talking about Mr. Gonzales being.
Of course, cartridges, the ejected cartridges are going to tell the general area where someone is.
One step at a time. That's
Okay.
right. So that's my point. If I was further south, you would see ejected cartridges even more south.
Possibly, yes.
Quite possible. The wind can't, just so they understand, if I'm shooting a semi-automatic and the casings are coming out, even if it was windy, the wind is not going to blow the casings over to my left.
I've been in some crazy wind, but it would have to be.
Then you're from West Texas,
It
right?
would have to be a crazy wind.
Right. It has to be crazy wind, right?
Yes.
Okay. Crazy wind. Okay. So if I'm
He's emphasizing it'd have to be really crazy, right?
shooting over here, then we should see some cartridges to the right of me.
Possibly, yes.
Possibly. That's an answer, because you have to answer that way, right?
Yes.
Okay. You're not being difficult.
I'm not trying
I
to.
know you're not. And so if these casings are
So I really like the defense lawyer here because he's got this witness and he's walking the witness through things and he's maintaining like a friendly demeanor, right? He's maintaining so far he's like, I don't have to fight any of the witnesses. We're just going to have a chat, right? The witness themselves is also, they're like, this guy's a great witness because he knows his stuff. He's not trying to bullshit. He's not trying to it's not the way that when you see like Trooper Paul or, Burgess or Blue Man Group, what was his name? How they're all like fighting the defense lawyer and they're unwilling to answer anything, even really basic questions like, is the sky blue? And they're like, well, it depends on the day and, whatever. So this guy is just trying to answer as best he can. He doesn't want to get tripped up on anything, but he's answering as best he can. And I think he's doing a really good job on that. I like this witness. He's just like, I just am going to talk about what happened. That's it. I don't care what the outcome is. I'm not trying to push any particular result. I'm just going to testify honestly. So
here, then most possibly the shooter was over here to the left. more west.
I'd say that is possible.
Probably more possible.
It's
More
possible.
likely than not. Is that fair? More likely.
I would
than
say it's more likely that they're over there than rather than over there.
Correct. And in your knowledge, there were no casings found further down south.
Not to my knowledge.
I want to direct your attention really quickly before I pass you to gunfire echo. You're familiar with gunfire echo, correct?
Yes.
Will you explain to the jury what gunfire echo is?
Are you talking about in reference to how it comes off of
Yes, sir. Exactly.
buildings?
Yes, sir.
Depending on how many buildings are around or your particular surroundings, it's just an echo. It's just like if you yell, there's going to be an echo. If there's gunfire, there's going to be an echo for that as well.
And may I approach, Judge?
Yes, sir.
And we can see around Robb Elementary, there are buildings, including Robb Elementary, that could have had this gunfire echo. Is that a fair statement?
Yes.
So if somebody is shooting on the west side of Robb Elementary, which we know happened, that most likely, possibly, would create gunfire echoes.
It could.
And do you know now in your investigation that there were 3 officers over here on the corner of Grove and Geraldine?
I'm not familiar with that.
If there were, in a hypothetical as an expert, and they claimed they were being shot at, we should see some evidence of them being shot at. Is that a fair statement?
Possibly if the bullets struck something.
Right. If they're being shot at, there should be possible evidence of things being struck.
Possibly. Yes.
But even if they weren't being shot at, it's reasonable. They could have thought they were being shot at because of the echo.
I guess that's a possibility.
Possible. If somebody's on the south side of the building, in our earlier example, and let's say we don't see evidence that they were being shot at multiple times, it's possible they thought they were being shot at if somebody was shooting on the west side of the building.
That's possible.
Thank you very much, Ranger. Oh, hold on, I'm not going to pass you yet. Hold on. But in general, echo can distort location of a shooter.
It can.
Thank you, sir. Pass the witness, Judge.
I think largely the prosecution wasted this witness. And what I mean by that is that they've got this witness who is really knowledgeable and really sensible. And all they ask him to do, all they bring this guy in to do is, can you go through every photo that was ever taken in the history of time and, confirm them? I'm like, okay, cool. That's nice. But this guy is actually smart. This guy, and the defense goes, okay, I bet we can get all sorts of useful things on this one. And the defense was like, we can use this guy. So far, this is the prosecution's case. The defense hasn't called a single witness yet, and they won't get to until the prosecution rests. But I look at this guy and I go, this guy actually, this guy came out as essentially a defense witness. And the prosecution never really did anything with him. And then they go for redirect, and it gets really sad.
112, I think, is the last thing we talked about. From this exhibit, you were talking about line of fire. You were calling that testimony?
The line of sight. Yes.
Okay. From the foreground or the bottom of this photograph, exhibit 112, do you see the 2 black police cars?
Yes.
And would you point those out? Here's your marker still there.
Your Honor, can I approach the screen?
Yes, sir.
There's going to be one right here. Going to be one right here.
And is there a building behind that first
Yes.
vehicle that you pointed to?
Building right here behind this patrol car.
Is that in the line of sight?
Yes.
And to the right of that, been described as a playground.
Over here?
Yes. Is that in the line of sight?
From this area?
Yes.
Yes.
So if you're holding a gun could be shot down that line of sight into the playground, into that building, or in the direction of where those 2 black police cars were.
Yes.
Thank you. That's the witness.
And in your investigation, you see right there, yes, sir. In your investigation, you did not you had not heard of, or not, you did not see yourself or collect any evidence of gunfire at the playground or at the pavilion.
Correct, I did not.
So there are no defects in the playground. There's no defects in the pavilion, correct?
That I don't know. I did not examine those. I didn't collect any evidence over there, but I didn't go over there to look.
But you've not even heard of any evidence being collected over there.
I have not.
Thank you. Thank you, Ranger. Pass the witness, Judge.
Mr. Turner, what else?
No further questions, Judge.
Okay, see, subject to recall, either side.
Not asked.
No, no, Judge.
Okay, Ranger, you are excused. The rule has been invoked, so please don't discuss the case until you're aware it's over.
Yes, sir.
All right, thank you very much.
I really like this ranger. I mean, if he reaches out, I will happily pay for him to get his head shaved because he needs to. But he's a really good witness, and he's just being straight up on this. And somebody's saying, does anyone know what's happened to Rob? Rob is busy up until February. He thinks he's coming back. So, yeah. All right. Carrying on here. They come back. Prosecution's having a discussion where I think they're like, hey, we don't think this is going so well. Char Anderson says 1 year as a member, many more as a viewer. Thanks. Thank you. The Becca Fly, thank you for joining up. K-Rab, thank you for the 5 gifted memberships. Mad World, thank you for 5 gifted memberships. Dusty Hans, hello, Runkle and friends. Happy to finally make a live. Happy to have you here. Fez from Quebec, reminds me of the duck on Burgess's head. Yes, that was entertainingly bad. Mad World says May 2026, be everything you dream of, Mr. Runkle. Hopefully only the good dreams. Purple Pixie Dust says, I'm a little behind. I learned so much from you about firearms. My firearm knowledge is limited to Nerf, water, or cap guns because I'm that old. Thank you so much. I truly appreciate it. Happy to help. Tough Cookie says, thank you for these recaps. Always grateful for more Runkle. Glad to have you here. Joy W, thanks for the nightly recaps. There's a lot of effort for you. Appreciate it. I'm glad to be here. And Elizabeth Me says, I'm coming in like a juror. These recaps are gold. Thank you so much. We're doing a little test today where, what do you call it? We're doing a test where we're not running goals just to see if the goals, do better or worse than no goals. So I will find that out probably for Monday because there's a bit of a lag time, but then we will decide what we're doing going forward with, once
we're sensitive to the nature of this case, the emotional nature, the tragic nature of it. I'm going to forewarn you, these photographs are going.
Oh, yes. This is an important little lecture here. So let's see.
The gentlemen who are in the gallery, we're very sensitive to the nature of this case, the emotional nature, the tragic nature of it. I'm going to forewarn you, these photographs are going to be shocking and gruesome. And if anybody wants to step out, you are welcome to step out, but we cannot have any displays in front of the jury. So I'm forewarning you, these are not going to be pleasant to look at. And I'm sorry, you're going to have to look at them just like I had to. But if you want to step out, you are welcome to. All right, so let's proceed.
So what the judge is saying is, I don't want to see you go, no faces, no anything, nothing, right? So the jury's going to see pictures of all of this. We are not going to see those pictures, and that is a good thing because we wouldn't show those pictures even if the court showed it, but we're just absolutely hardcore not showing that. So yeah. All right. And what do you call it here? So I have a package that I'm expecting. It is supposedly getting delivered today from sometime between 8 a.m. to midnight. I don't know when it is, but when it comes in, I will show it to you guys. Also, did I tell you guys the story of what Potter was doing earlier? Just for something a little lighthearted before we get into that. what is it? We were getting ready for, we were getting ready for like a nice, for a dinner. And Mrs. Runkle ordered some food in just so that I could eat before we would, before we'd go ahead. So, we had some like chicken wings, and with the wings came, like, how when you get wings, they throw in like a couple of pieces of celery and like a piece of carrot. So I was sitting there and I'd eaten all the wings. And then I had I was just chewing on the piece of celery. And Potter comes up and he's like, and he makes the real sad face about how he wants the piece of celery. And I'm like, Potter, you don't like celery. Why do you want the celery? And he's like, so finally I'm like, all right, here you go, dog. You can have a piece of celery. And so I gave I gave Potter a piece of celery, and he's sitting there and he's like, so he like mouths the celery repeatedly, and then he spits it out. And Zora comes running up after he spits out the celery, and she snaps it up and she just eats the celery. She's got no problem. Like, celery is like, all right, I'm going to eat that. And then I'm sitting there with another piece of celery in my hand. And Potter is like, and I'm like, you just didn't want this. Why are you begging for the other piece of celery? So anyway, he's begging. And so I gave him the other piece of celery and he went, meh. And then Zora eats the celery again. So I'm like, okay. So then I'm sitting there and like I pull out the piece of carrot and the dog is like, I want the carrot. And I'm like, okay, fine. So I give him a piece of carrot. And once again, he's like, bah. And he spits it out and Zora eats that. And then finally, Zora's sitting there like, and so I give Zora the other half of the carrot. And Zora just like noms the carrot right down. She loves the carrot. And Potter looks at me like, how come she gets a treat and I don't? I'm like, come on, dog. So, yeah. Zora was like, I don't mind all of this, but Potter was very sad that he was getting left out. Somebody was asking for an update on the flamethrower. So those of you who don't know, I bought a flamethrower last year. And then I couldn't use it. Because what I want to do is I want to do a flamethrower video out on my land. And so what I applied for is I applied for a burning permit. And the fire department was like, no. They said, nope, it is too close to the fire season. So this year I waited until like January when it's real cold. And I was like, hey, can I have a permit to burn some brush piles? And they're like, okay, can you tell us a bit more about what you want to do? And I was like, I want to burn a brush pile with a flamethrower. And they're like, a flamethrower? You mean like a tiger torch? And I'm like, no, I do not mean like a tiger torch. I mean a full-on flamethrower that shoots fire like 50 feet. And they're like, we are going to have to get back to you because we don't know what the hell to think about that one. Anyway, they have given me a permit for burning brush piles with a flamethrower. And there are some restrictions. They've said that I can't, if it's generating too much smoke and annoying the neighbors, I got to knock it off. They have said that if that I can't burn it if the piles are too close to trees. Reasonable, right? You can't burn it where there's the forest. Fair. And they have said that the operation of the flamethrower must be in line with manufacturer's instructions. And I'm like, of course it is, because like I'm not going to go off label with a flamethrower. So sometime soon there is going to be a flamethrower video, and I have the video kind of mapped out. It's going to start with me flamethrowing. There's going to be some flamethrowing in it. And there's going to be a fair bit of discussion of flamethrower law. And then I'm going to go and, so yeah, there is a flamethrower video planned. I just have to go out to where it is like waist deep snow in the absolute cold, freezing cold, to go and flamethrower. And I got to convince somebody, a friend of mine, to go and I got to convince a friend of mine to film the flamethrower. And yeah, we'll see about that. So anyway, that's the flamethrower plans. Super chats here. The son of a bard. I'd be using a firearms expert to either justify not entering suspect weapon, PPE, police PPE, or they should have entered. PPE is greater than suspect weapon. Yeah, in this case, suspect weapon is greater than PPE, so they can't do that for the prosecution. Laura Christine, thank you for streaming all week. I will probably be streaming all next week too. Vomit Fountain says, just dropping in to support the live stream. Your coverage of this trial is the right mix of informative, entertaining, and compassionate. It's been a pleasure to watch. Catch everyone in the replay. Thank you so much. And I like to try to put some humor in it as well, because this is a horrible case. We have to laugh about something. And so we can laugh about flamethrowers, right? That'll be a thing we can laugh about. So, yeah.
Bring the jury in.
All right, Secretary.
Okay, please be seated in the courtroom. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen of the jury, for your patience. Again, there are certain matters that have to be taken up outside your presence, and we appreciate you understanding that. Please don't hold it against either side. So with that, this witness has been sworn outside your presence, so you may proceed when you're ready.
Would you state your name, please?
Juan Torres.
And Mr. Torres, what do you do for a living?
I am retired. Currently, I work for the State Department, and I work in Honduras right now.
You work for the State Department in Honduras.
Yes.
And when did you retire?
I retired in April of 2024.
What did you do before you retired?
I was, my last 11 years, I was a Texas Ranger.
And before you were a Texas Ranger, what did you do?
Well, in 1995, I started the academy. I was a state trooper for 8 years. I then went to become a Highway Patrol sergeant in El Paso for 5 years.
I'm sorry, I didn't hear. What was that?
I was a Highway Patrol sergeant
Highway Patrol.
in El Paso for 5 years. I worked narcotics for about 5 years, and then I finished my career as a Texas Ranger the last 11 years.
And what did you do as a Texas Ranger? Did you have specific assignments?
I was a like a 3D scanner. I was a firearms instructor. I attended the National Forensics Academy in Tennessee for 10 weeks in 2016. I was a crime scene instructor as well.
And so as a result of that, did you also work crime scenes?
I worked many crime scenes. Yes.
And have you worked mass shooting crime scenes?
I've worked 4 mass shooting crime scenes.
And what 4 were those?
Southern Springs in 2016, the Walmart shooting in El Paso in 2019, the Odessa mass shooting in 2019, and Uvalde.
Those are the 4 that you've worked.
Yes.
So mass shootings have become part of law enforcement. Is that correct?
I'm just going to object to any mention of any other shootings or anything like that, and continuing on this line of questioning.
All right, I'll sustain the objection. Go ahead.
Did you see what the prosecution was just doing? the defense has been super reluctant to object, right? They have been holding on to objections. There have been moments that have been objectionable, and this is where they stand up to object. And I want to replay just this little bit, the prosecution's last question, because holy shit, it was greasy.
So Matt,
In 2019 in Uvalde.
those are before that you've worked.
Yes.
So mass shootings have become part of law enforcement. Is that correct?
Mass shootings have become part of law enforcement. See, before that, they were asking this guy about his background, his experience, right? Now they're basically inviting the jury to make this trial about condemnation of like mass shooters generally. They're like, if you hate the, like, and I'm like, whoa, this guy, if he is to be convicted, needs to be convicted on what he did or didn't do, not on like, don't like that question. Because that question was basically like inviting the jury to be like, yes, there's too many mass shootings. We got to convict this guy. And that is the defense got up. They don't object a lot, but they objected politely and calmly. And holy shit, that was the place to object. So good on the defense for standing up there. And yeah.
Just going to object to any mention of any other shootings or anything like that, and continuing on this line of questioning.
All right, I'll sustain the objection. Go ahead.
And you did work the Uvalde
Yes, I did.
crime scene, is that correct?
Yes.
And when did you arrive?
I arrived on the 24th around 11 o'clock at night. And then the 25th, a little after 7 in the morning, is when we had our briefing and started working.
And during the briefing, did you get an assignment?
I was assigned to be the photographer
And the photographer where?
for room 111.
Did the crime
So I see this argument. I don't get that. I heard it as if you're in law enforcement, you expect to be responding to mass shootings, so you should not be panicking. Except this guy can't testify to that because he isn't the guy who is like defending against a mass shooting. This is the guy who shows up and takes pictures. This is the guy who shows up and does like crime scene shit. And I'm going to say it's a very different thing to do the crime scene stuff than it is to, you know, do whatever. In the same way that it's very different to be like, I visited this famous battlefield as like a war historian to like write a book about it versus I was here when there was machine gun fire and bombs and shit. Like those are different spheres of existence. And yeah.
scene units break up into different teams?
Yes, so like I know 112 had a different team, the hallway had a different team. Once I got assigned to room 111, I stayed there and I basically just stayed in my lane.
Okay, so basically you were in room 111.
Yes.
And would you give us a general description of room 111?
When we got there, the room was in disarray. There was some markings in the room. There was a lot of shell casings. There was a lot of blood swipes, and the weapon was in the closet.
Okay. And did you photograph the weapon of the gunman?
Yes, I did.
Okay. And as to the cartridge casings, did you photograph the cartridge casings?
Yes, I did.
And so shots were being fired inside room 111?
Yes, there was.
And were there results of those shots in the room also?
Yes.
And are casings implanted within that blood?
Yes.
So some of the photographs we see of casings, that's where you saw them,
Yes.
and that's where you picked them up.
Yes.
As part of a crime scene, do you also document then the pathways, if you can, of the bullet?
Yes.
And did you do that?
I assisted with that part.
You took photographs of that too?
Yes.
And is that include those rods showing the directionality?
Yes, they are.
In addition to casings, was there anything, casings in a weapon, was there any other part of a weapon that you recovered there in room 111?
There was bullet fragments, bullets, unspent cartridge cases, and a Hellfire that's attached to the weapon.
The Hellfire,
Okay, well,
Hellfire trigger system?
Yes.
Okay, we'll talk about that in a little bit.
all right. So he's going to talk about that in a little bit. We're going to talk about that now. So what the Hellfire trigger is it's a, it's unlike, for instance, like a forced reset trigger or the like, because forced reset triggers, you have to take the gun apart and so forth. The Hellfire trigger can be added on as like an after attachment thing. And basically the way it works is that I'm going to embiggen myself here. So you've got the trigger, and when you pull the trigger's got to go and like it's got to return to its original position before it can fire again, right? So that's part of what makes it a semi-automatic. So you've got your trigger, you pull it, and then it's got to return. The Hellfire trigger, what it does is it pushes the trigger forward. And so what that means is that it makes it faster to pull the trigger. It is not classified by the ATF as a machine gun. So a Hellfire trigger is not classified as a machine gun. It is, but it does increase the rate of fire. And somebody who's good with a Hellfire trigger, is used to using it, can approach rates similar to full auto fire. However, and people are saying, so it's an externally mounted spring. Yes. Hellfire triggers are largely out of fashion right now. And the reason why is because now there are things like the forced reset trigger and the super safety, which there's now lawsuits about that I'm covering. But those get you a much closer feel to full auto fire than does the Hellfire trigger. So yeah, it's kind of an obsolete thing, if that makes sense. And yeah. And thank you, Jamie. So I see Jamie has sent a PayPal. So thank you so much. Is a Hellfire trigger like a bump stock? No, although a Hellfire trigger can be used in conjunction with a bump stock. Let me try to explain with the ouchie stick what a bump stock is. So, what you've got, is that when the gun is fired, it pushes back, right? The recoil pushes it back. Now, if you've got the stock on something that allows it, like if you've got the rifle on something that allows it to move back and forth, and I've got like 6 inches of distance here between this and my face because this is very sharp. But what you can do is you can push the gun forward such that each time it fires and recoils back, essentially the bump stock causes the gun to move back and forward such that each time it's moving forward, your finger hits the trigger. So your finger hits the trigger as it's moving forward, then it kicks back. Then your finger hits the trigger, then it kicks back. Then your finger hits the trigger, then it kicks back, and on and on. And so that gets you something that approximates automatic fire. However, when I say approximates, if you're bump firing, you are not going to you're not going to hit shit. Bump firing is wildly inaccurate. And often with bump firing, you can you can't even line up the sights to get a clear view. And so bump firing is not terribly effective. And yeah, it's bump firing is if you want to turn a lot of a lot of money into noise is really how that works. but you're not going to hit shit. So it's a really bad option. Okay, so here we go.
What kind of weapon was it?
It was a down defense M4.
And are you familiar with that weapon?
It's the same weapon that the department carries.
The department carries the same weapon.
Yes.
And is it an automatic, semi-automatic, or is it a revolver type weapon that maintains the casings?
It's a semi-automatic.
And so when it is fired, does it eject casings?
Yes, it does.
And is that what you were recovering out there?
Yes, we were.
And how is the ammunition fed into the weapon?
Through a magazine.
Did you recover magazines at the scene?
Yes, we did.
And were they full or empty?
Some were full, some were empty, some were damaged.
And what was the size of the magazines? How much would they hold?
I believe they hold 30 rounds
Each.
each one.
30 rounds is like a standard AR mag. So very, very standard.
And have you had a chance to review exhibits 317 through 486 before coming here today?
Yes.
And are each of those exhibits fair and accurate representations of the crime scene as you saw it?
Yes, they are.
And is it fair to say that because they're casings, they're in blood also? Is that correct?
Yes, they are.
May we display it now, Your Honor? Those exhibits to the jury.
Yeah, Your Honor, I have something I'd like to approach on with that.
Okay.
So they approach. We're going to skip ahead and we're going to see what this guy. So you see what Court TV has put up on the screen as we skip ahead. Court TV has put up graphic images. Court TV will not air graphic images per judge's orders. I don't think you should air pictures of dead children, even if you don't have a judge's order, but yeah.
Excuse me, exhibit 317. Could you tell us what room that you work on at Robb Elementary?
Yes, sir.
You know,
It should be room 111.
And yes, they mean per judge's order that they wrote.
and would you
pre.
point that out again so that we can all see that? So would that be on the east side of the fourth grade wing?
Yes, it would.
And so the west side of the fourth grade wing,
Yes.
if there's been testimony of people being evacuated from the west side of that wing, that would be on the opposite side of room 111,
Yes, it would.
where you found this room with all of the cartridges in the blood. Is that
Yes,
correct?
correct.
And State's Exhibit 318. Could you tell us what we're looking at here?
Is the outside of the east wing? And
So it's starting to show us the outside of the east wing. And is there a white patrol car in that photograph?
yes, there is.
Would you point that out for us? And State's Exhibit 319, does that move down the east wing?
Your Honor, I'd just like to, I mean, pointed out a white patrol car, that was not my client's, it's not on pages. I think it just, that has a tendency to make them believe, make the jury believe that it's my client. I think you should explain that profile.
It will be explained in full, Your Honor.
Okay.
That was one of the-
I'll overrule the objection at this time. You can proceed.
And State's Exhibit 319,
Yes.
excuse me, would you go back to 319? Can you see a defect in a window in Exhibit 319?
Yes.
Would you point that out to the jury? And State's Exhibit 320. Does that close in on that defect?
Yes.
And Exhibit 321. Thank you. You can have a seat. Would you tell the jury whether or not that was that defect in that window, whether or not that defect was part of room 111?
Yes, it was.
Okay, so one shot came through the window on the east side of the building.
Yes.
And then did you, I want to orient the jury as to room 11, so let's move to Exhibit 322. Could you tell us what we're looking at here?
That's the front door to room 111.
And what condition did you find it in?
Had bullet holes and bullet holes to the window. There was one bullet hole to the door, and another indentation to the door.
And State's Exhibit 323, does that also show that it's classroom 111 in a close-up of the damage done to the?
Yes, it does.
And then as we open the door and start our way inside, Would you describe what we see in Exhibit 325?
That's the inside. That's the inside of the room 111. Doors closed. You can see bloody drag marks going out of room 111.
And is there a piece of either weaponry or ammunition in that exhibit?
Yes. There's a magazine and a few shell casings.
Okay. And are the shell casings marked?
Yes, they are.
How are they marked?
They're marked with yellow arrows and orange arrows.
Okay. Could you tell us then how you went about, what were the steps you took in processing this crime scene?
Initially, we went in as a team. Our team leader gave us a brief of the room. We tried to identify as many defects as much evidence as we could identify before we started marking or anything else. Then I went in by myself and started doing the overall pictures on the entire room.
And the small yellow markers, is that the only marker?
So he went in and took pictures inside the classroom.
A lot of bullet defects, perforations, penetrations, and just a lot of blood.
And that's what we're about to see now.
Yes, we are.
Showing you State's Exhibit 337.
A lot of blood, and that's what we're about to see now. Mm-hmm.
Could you describe what we're seeing here?
Again, that's that whiteboard on that wall. There's a basketball. A lot of shoe impressions. There's a tennis shoe covered in blood. You can start seeing the yellow markers that have already been put in place there for the Smith shell casings, and you can see the drag marks.
Okay, the children were all removed before you took any photographs, is that correct?
That's correct.
And is that indications of the children being removed?
Yes, it is.
And Exhibit 341, does it show an overall picture then of the hallway?
So here's the thing. The shooter, like, none of his actions would have been in the control of of Mr. Gonzales. So this is basically just they want to traumatize the jurors such that the jurors will be so angry that they will convict anybody and everybody. That's what they want to do here. And I mean, I hope it's not effective, but there's a very real possibility it could be. All right, so we're going to jump ahead a fair bit here. Quite a bit, in fact.
That would be what looks like a door handle with an exterior lock, or a lock that you can lock and unlock with a key.
Yes.
All right. Did you, when you were processing, try to lock that door?
I believe we did.
Okay. And were you able to lock it?
I don't remember. I think since I wasn't messing with the door and I was just taking photos,
If you don't
know.
feel comfortable saying, that's okay. I don't want you to say anything you don't feel confident about. We need to make sure that everything's as right as can be. But I guess, and the reason I'm asking the question is because you would agree, as part of law enforcement, and as long as you've been doing it. So what did you do before you were a Ranger?
I was in the Marines.
So you're a Marine, so you're military, thank you for your service. And then
So you were in the Marines. So you were military. Thank you for your service. I mean, the U.S. is kind of weird to me because of the way they go, like, thank you for your service, just as like this, whatever. But this guy is a Marine, and the defense knew the answer to that question when they asked it, right? They knew this guy's a Marine before they ask. Now, I mean, he could be a jerk, and he could be like, oh, can I offer you a crayon? But that's not where he's going with this. He is instead going to use this in order to get information that is very helpful for the defense out of this. So here we go.
a Ranger.
Yes, sir.
Did you do any like military police or anything when you were in the Marines?
I was an embassy guard.
Embassy guard. So you were one of the people that, if, in a foreign country, if somebody tried to attack our embassy, you would be the one to protect it.
Yes, sir.
Understood. So I guess you understand then with that experience, embassy guard, law enforcement, that door locks and locks on doors, especially in schools, can significantly hinder anybody trying to get in and cause mass casualty.
Correct.
And so you know that that our schools, almost all of our schools across this country, have developed policies that no matter what, during the day, at night, students are there, nobody's there, that door remains locked.
Correct.
Right, for their protection and their safety.
Yes.
And if the lock is not able to be locked, who's responsible for making sure that that lock is functional and is able to be locked?
I'm assuming whoever the teacher or maintenance,
Sure.
somebody there.
Yeah, I mean,
Whoever reports it, it has to be fixed.
right, you would agree. It starts probably with the teacher saying, my door won't lock, and then it goes work order, maybe goes to the administration, goes to the maintenance people, whatever else. But what you said is, and I agree with you, is that it is of primary importance for safety that lock is functional,
Yes.
right? Because a shooter, like in this case, a shooter, if they are delayed in getting in or cannot get in, that can give other units time to respond
Yes.
and perhaps do something before he's able to get in the room, right?
So what the defense is getting out, like the prosecution used this guy for, look at all the horrible pictures, right? What does defense get out of this guy? Defense manages to get out of this guy, oh, right, the door locks would have prevented this, this killing. That's good for the defense.
Okay, so in your law enforcement training and experience, have you ever heard of something called the fatal funnel?
Yes.
Okay, what is a fatal funnel?
Okay, so this is going to be a really important concept. We're going to back it up just a little bit here.
Training and experience. Have you ever heard of something called?
So fatal funnel is going to be a really big deal in terms of the defense's argument. And essentially what the argument comes down to is that this guy couldn't go in because it was too dangerous for him to do so. So we're gonna talk about what the fatal funnel is. We're going to explain it. Leave Nancy Grace alone. As soon as Nancy Grace stops involving herself in the worst, most ghoulish ways, then yes.
Right?
Correct.
Okay, so in your law enforcement training and experience, have you ever heard of something called the fatal funnel?
Yes.
Okay, what is a fatal funnel?
When you're involved in a critical incident and you basically lose your peripheral vision and you focus on one thing.
Right, sure. Then
No.
that's like
That's tunnel vision. So what he's talking about is how you can get tunnel vision and how you can get like target focus. And I mean, what he's talking about is relevant because in adrenaline-laced situations, people often have a very difficult time like looking at stuff in their peripheral vision, right? That's not the fatal funnel, but fatal funnel.
and you're talking about kind of getting tunnel vision, but at some point, if you're trying to get into a door or a hallway,
Oh, yes.
right, then what does that do?
So the defense lawyer does a really good job here. I really like how the defense lawyer does it. He's like, let me orient you a little bit as to what I'm talking about, right? He nudges him over to correctly, like the correct term.
For instance, let's say multiple law enforcement, multiple officer response. Can five of me standing here get through that doorway at the same time?
No, sir.
Because it funnels us in one by one.
Correct.
Maybe 2 by 2 if you're lucky and the door is wide enough. So a lot of times that can be somebody with a shield and people behind, or just people running in one by one
Yes.
into a door. And that's why law enforcement, they call that a fatal funnel, because if somebody's set up and ready, pop, 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 they could just knock down everybody that comes in as they come in.
Yes.
Now,
All right. So fatal funnel is really a phenomenon that shows up in like house clearing and so forth. It's anywhere where there's like a door or a staircase or something else that narrows things down. And it's part of why house clearing is so insanely dangerous, because what ends up happening is if you've got if you've got like a doorway that only, one person can go into or out of, it also means that it's one narrow entrance or exit that, you're bottlenecked in. And so you're sitting there with a rifle and you can just aim at that spot. There's no surprise. There's no like whatever. It's just you wait for something to appear and then you shoot it, right? And so what ends up happening in that, in that sphere when they're trying to clear houses and so forth is you can end up with one person who's sitting there at that, like, who's covering that doorway. And in theory, they can defeat 5, 10, 20 people because it's extremely dangerous to go through the door, right? So the issue here is basically saying, well, Gonzales couldn't go after this guy because he's going to get bottlenecked and he might get taken out. All I ask is keep the memberships up. I can't argue with that. So yeah.
Can we go to that second? When they gave you, and the second picture will be 362.
Sorry, nothing happened while I was not shrinking. Thank you so much, Mad World, R2B.
And I don't know, in your brief on Classroom 111, where you briefed that blood we see on the ground, that was the blood of the shooter. And that was his positioning after the BORTAC team went in and a tactical team went in and shot and killed him.
No,
You didn't know that that was his blood.
no, I did not.
You didn't know that was his position.
I knew that. I did not know that was his position.
Like his ending up position after he died.
I did
Okay.
not.
You're on a post the television.
Yes.
Okay, but in being in that room, and one of the things, and I'm not saying that you first of all, you took pictures and you did a good job kind of going around the room, and also I know it's hard for you to take this picture. It's hard for everybody to see. And we appreciate that you did it. You did your job. This closet here. Remember that door that we talked about, the outside door we were talking about, the lock?
Yes.
Right. If we open that door, that's basically a view from opening that door. This closet is directly across.
Yes.
Right. And you know from your briefing that the shooter was in the closet when they got in.
Yes.
Did you know also that he was in the closet with the door closed?
No.
Did you know that as they breached, it was dark and the door opened and the shooter?
This is all based on hearsay.
Well, we're going to have everybody testify to it, and I'm not saying anything that they know that they think is untrue.
It's still based on hearsay, Your Honor.
Well, sir, if you know, you can answer. If you don't know your own personal knowledge, then tell him that, okay?
Yes, sir. Okay. So you said you did not know that. Did you know that the room was dark when they went in?
No.
Okay. Were you aware of a policy in the schools for the safety of the children that the teachers and the children are trained on, that when there is a shooter and they get an alert that there's a shooter on campus, that they are to go in, turn off all the lights, be quiet, and hide?
Yes.
Okay. So if it was dark when they came in, it would not be a surprise because any teachers and students following that training would have turned all the lights off, been quiet, and hid.
Correct.
Right. Okay. So this door, as we talked about in this little closet, is directly across from the door that we entered. Okay. And in your briefing on room 111, were you briefed that this was the shooter's homeroom when he was in fourth grade?
No.
Okay, you didn't know that.
No, sir.
Right. Because if you had known that, or if anybody in law enforcement in that position had known that and had known who the person was before they get into school or whatever else, or even when they're outside the school, that gives a little bit more information about maybe where he's headed. Not just randomly going into a room, but going into a room that he knows, right?
Correct.
And that's important because if that was his home room.
Objection, Your Honor, he's testifying, he's not asking questions.
Oh, it's cross-examination. I'll overrule the objection.
So the prosecution is like, I hate how the defense keeps managing to get good stuff out of our witnesses. And yeah.
If that was his homeroom in fourth grade,
All good, Leslie. It's a good
then he
time
would
to have
know,
a
just
drink.
like any student there would know.
I
that
might
that's
make
all-
myself a drink too.
If that was your homeroom or mine, and we remembered our homerooms from fourth grade, we would know the positioning if it hadn't changed, and the building hasn't changed since he was in fourth grade. But we would know that that's there now.
The whole point of this being the shooter's homeroom is that the shooter knows the room, right? The shooter's got kind of the he's got the home turf advantage here. Whereas Gonzales has never been in this room in his life. So another reason why you might hesitate, why you might not charge in is, I don't know this area, and he might. So
A shooter who is perched there can create a fatal funnel at the entrance of that classroom. Right. Were you aware when you were briefed that when the BORTAC unit, that's the Border Patrol Tactical Unit, went in, they basically, what they did was they tried to do like a diversionary entry where they came in and tried to distract at the same time as they were shooting, right? To try to figure out, because you got to figure out where the shooter is in the classroom. Yeah. And it turned out he was here. They had to draw fire to do that. Were you briefed on that? No. Okay. Were you briefed on the fact that Wayne Jackson from the BORTAC unit was shot in the head by the shooter?
No, sir.
Okay. So
did you hear that? Yeah, and the court audio keeps dropping down or up or whatever. But did you hear that? That's an important thing. One of the breaching guys got shot in the head by the shooter. So, you're saying Gonzales had to go in. I think he did. But he could have gotten shot in the head. And I go, well, that is part of the job, right? But what they're trying to say is, jury, do you really think this guy should get convicted for not getting shot in the head? I don't think the jury's going to convict.
And that's because if you're on a
Yes.
stick, as they call it, you got to be on a stick because there's the fatal funnel and you can't all fit at the same time. You go into the classroom and go to the side, and Wayne Jackson is at the very end and he gets hit in the head and it turns him around. You didn't know that?
No, sir.
Okay, so it's safe to say
He is actually kind of testifying at this point. So, yeah.
that this shooter is a mass child murderer who wants to be a cop killer. You would agree with that?
Possible?
Based on those facts?
Yes.
As I gave it. And this shooter is, because a shooter in a mass shooting, you said you've worked several. A shooter in a mass shooting can kill themselves, right? That's something that has been done and can be done. A shooter can turn.
And we're demonetized for sure. But raise a glass for monetization because it gone, I'm sure.
The gun on themselves.
Yes.
They can, continue to kind of roam around in the classroom and aimlessly maybe, or, doing stuff or saying stuff, or they can walk around the classroom with their gun. They can do that, right?
Yes.
Okay. They can try to escape if they can figure out or try to find a way to get themselves out so they can commit the shooting and do this horrible, tragic, terrible thing and then escape the consequences of it. They can try to do that.
Yes.
By getting out a window or even maybe trying to come through the door and shoot their way out or whatever else, right?
Correct.
But in this case, after he had committed his atrocities, he got in a closet and waited for the police to come in so that he could try to kill them based on all the facts that you have.
Correct.
Okay. So he's a mass child murderer who wants to be a cop killer. And luckily for Officer Jackson, it hit him in the top of the head, spun him around, but didn't kill him. But had it done that, he would have been both a mass child murderer and a cop killer, right?
Yes.
Okay. So we can take that picture. So like you said you were trained on a Leica 3D scanner,
Yes.
and one of those things is with the Leica is that right, and we say Leica, and but I think Leica is a brand name.
It's a brand name. Yes.
Right. What's it called? What's the generic name for a Leica scanner? If you even know, I've always said Leica, but one of the other rangers said that there was a system that was out there. It's called like a Total View or something. But you've been trained on Leica.
Yes.
Okay.
It's a 3D scanner.
Let's talk about Leica.
Okay.
And 3D scanner. Judge May, you still up?
Yes.
So we have a, just so they know, and Gary explained it a little bit, but it's a tripod, usually.
Yes.
The scanner sits on, scans an area, and can tell you, one of the most important things it tells you is distances between things at the scene.
Yes.
Right? And sometimes it may not be necessary. Like you didn't do a Leica scan in 111.
No.
Right. And you wouldn't do that because the room Well, the room was connected to 112 through I guess there was a door, kind of an open door that I suppose could be shut, but those two, you could pass from 111 to 112.
Yes,
Yeah, and somebody else had the brief for 112.
yes.
Okay. So just in general though, because I know you didn't have the briefer out here, I'm not gonna try to take you too far afield. But just in general, in your forensics training, like a Leica scanner could say in this field, in this area, this area, this area, this area, this area, that would tell distances between shell casings, between cars,
Yes.
between car and a building, right? Between entrances, between these cars in the parking lot. All of those things, Leica pretty quickly would be able to scan it, get 1 million points of data, and then that's how it ends up. Is we could end up saying, well, this is 15 feet from this, or this shell casing is 10 feet from this shell casing, and this shell casing is 50 feet from that one, right?
Correct.
All right. So when we talk about this area here, I want to talk about shell casings and shell casing collection. Have you ever been part of this? Harry, what was that called? The line that they do? Line search. You ever been part of a line search?
Oh, yes.
Right. And you say that like yes, of course, and I've done it a lot.
Yes.
Right. So in this case, the FBI do a line search. They do a line search all the way out here, all here, looking for shell casings, right? And so the way they described it is, everybody's in a line.
Objection, preparing testimony to other witnesses, Your Honor.
That's not. I don't think that's an objection, and he's been proffered as an expert by the state.
Overruled objection. Good.
So they walk in a line.
So far, the state is like 0 for. No, they've got a couple of objections sustained, but they're making a lot of objections that just aren't going anywhere and aren't good objections.
Oh, I see something. Everybody stops, flag, and do that. Is that your experience the same way?
Yes.
Have you ever had to go on your hands and knees?
Yes.
And what would the reason for that be?
High grass, weeds.
Sure. You can't necessarily trust if you're standing all the way up. You can't trust your ability to maybe see something, so you get down low to the ground.
You get down over the ground. I mean, you can use flashlights as well.
Right. Sure. And so it's you would agree that it's a thorough search, is what you're trying to do.
I would add another search. I mean, a different technique.
Which one?
In the past, I've used ATF canines that are specifically trained to look for shell casing, burnt gunpowder.
Right.
And yes.
And that's interesting because you'd have like a canine that we see at the airport that is, and maybe sometimes at a traffic stop, probably not sometimes, that is trained to detect drugs, right? Cocaine. And those dogs that are trained to detect cocaine are like, that's what they do. They detect cocaine. There's other dogs that are trained to detect bombs. And that would be really not, here's a bomb. What they're trained on is they're trained on the things that make up bombs.
I was going to make a bad joke there, but I'm like, that's just going to bring drama into my life. So you can imagine the bad joke for yourselves.
Or other things like that would go into the bomb making if somebody were to do that. And then you have other animals like you talked about, these canines that are highly trained to detect the scent of gunpowder, which would be on the shelf. Right?
Yes.
Okay. So let's assume that all the search is done the way that you feel should be done. And there are, if you look at this, I don't know if you got this from your brief, but I'll just tell you because it's the state's map.
Objection to just telling them, Your Honor, that's not a question.
I'm just
rephrase it, please.
Yes, Your Honor. I'm just trying to orient you because this is the state's map. And I don't know if you can see this red line. Can you see this red line here?
Yes, sir.
Okay. This is the state's map, and this is the shooter's path, and this is the culvert where he wrecked, right, at the start of this. Can you see that red X?
Yes.
Okay. So a path that takes him, the way that this path takes him, if shots are being fired along this path, they're being shot here, 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 here. All things considered, as an investigator, would you expect to find shell casings? Assuming they weren't picked up, assuming that they weren't moved, but a shooter shooting, as he goes this way, would you expect there to be evidence of shell casings to the right of where the shooter was?
It would depend on how he's holding the weapon.
Sure.
So he can be holding it sideways,
Right.
and the shell casing goes straight up.
Do you really think he was holding the AR sideways? So the defense is saying the shell casings are going to be to the right of his actual position because they don't want the shooter to be around that corner. They want him to be, obscured, right? And so you know, you got your shell casings and, you know, they eject back into the right. Now, you may have seen, like, you know, shooting the handgun gangsta style. Nobody shoots an AR gangsta style, right? No, you know, like, come on, dude. Come on.
No, so
Right.
they can bounce either way.
But I guess to go left,
Sure, and if he was holding the gun upside down to shoot it, then it might shoot, or then things might extend out to the left. But come on.
to start ejecting out from the left, he would have to be holding it upside down. If the ejector port is on the right side of the gun, when the gun's right side.
Yes.
Right. So it would require somebody holding an M4 upside down and shooting to get ejection coming out the left side.
It's possible. I mean, it all depends on how the person was holding the gun. I mean, that's just.
I am gonna have to buy some blue guns just so that I can just so I can do demos for stuff like this. But I mean, you know, his note that you can you know, come on, dude. Come on.
It's a big variable.
And I agree with you. It's a big one. But we can say ejector port to the right, showcase to go to the right.
Right.
Right. Unless it's upside down, and then it would eject out to the left.
Right.
Not a common way to
No.
use it for. Right. Maybe here to the side, up. The power is making it go up. But either way, all of this we're talking about, right or left.
Right.
You expect them to be somewhere around here.
Yes.
If you're shooting them. Okay. And shell casings that are here and here would be consistent with this, with, you know, even from their own map, would be consistent with somebody firing along this route and this route.
Yes.
Right? Oh, easy.
This is when you've got a witness who's engaging in some bullshitting, because I'm sorry, like, you know, oh, well, if you had the gun turned to the side, just answer the question like a normal person. Like, this is ridiculous and stupid. And so hate it. And it is what it is. But yeah. All right. I think that was all that we needed from this guy. Let's jump ahead a little bit to this guy. All right. We'll get to the start of him.
Come up, please. Would you raise your right hand? You do solemnly swear the evidence in the testimony given the cause will be the truth, so help you God.
I do.
All right. Have a seat over here. Adjust that microphone if you need to.
Tell us your name.
Brent Barina.
And what do you do, sir?
I'm a lieutenant with the Texas Rangers.
And how long have you been with the Texas Rangers?
I promoted in October of 08, so a little over 17 years.
What did you do before you were a Texas Ranger?
I was a highway patrol trooper for about 5.5 years from 2000 to 2005, and then I worked in our criminal intelligence service for about 3 years before that, or after that.
So how long have you been in law enforcement?
Almost 27 years.
And do you have any specialties in law enforcement?
A crime scene investigation.
Were you called out to Uvalde on May 24, 2022?
Yes, I was.
For what purpose?
The interior, different sections of the interior of the crime scene inside the building.
And did you also conduct searches or crime scene on outside of the building, specifically as to the room 24?
Yes, I did.
Okay. And that's the one I want to kind of focus on right now, if I could. Okay.
Okay.
What drew your attention to room 24?
Myself and Ranger Scott Swick had noticed that there were some cartridge cases flagged. I guess we would have been to the south of the main building where the shooting occurred. And it indicated that there might have been some shots fired towards building 24. So we went in that area and started inspecting some buildings in that area.
And so from the casings, you started looking for buildings in which those casings could have deposited a bullet entry.
Correct. We were looking for structures that might possibly have a bullet defect on them.
And did you find any with a bullet defect on it?
We did, yes.
And how did you confirm that it was a bullet defect?
It visually looked like one, and then we use what we call 3M lead check. It's a swab that you can test for lead. It has a activator and a dye that mixes, and when it's swabbed onto a surface that has lead, it'll give a kind of a pinkish purple color reaction.
So basically, that chemical reaction is used to distinguish between. They use it to distinguish between like just a hole versus you know, a what do you call it? Versus, you know, a bullet hole, right? Because lead contamination and so forth. All right, carrying on.
Did you document that?
Yes, I did.
Did you document it with photographs?
Yes, I did.
May I approach you?
So in your exhibit 634 through 645, you recognize those exhibits.
Yes, I do.
Spectators exhibit 634 through 645, and officer for amendments.
No objection, Judge.
They're admitted.
May we display?
Yes.
Ranger, if you need to point things out.
All right, we're going to jump ahead a little bit.
Conduit like that without leaving an impact wound?
It could if it just kind of grazed it and skipped off of it. If it actually hit it straight on, it could go through it, or it could fragment.
Was there any impact on the left side of that conduit?
Not that I could clearly see. I mean, I can't rule out the possibility that it did impact that, and then the ground fragmented, and then went through the surface, the metal surface.
I guess what I'm asking is, in your inspection of impacts, did a bullet travel through that PCV pipe and then enter that valley?
Not that I can tell. If it did hit the PVC pipe, it would have been on the edge closest to the impact site.
Excuse me, I didn't understand you.
I said if it did impact the PVC pipe, it would have, or the conduit, it would have been on the side closest to the impact site on the metal.
Would that be in the right-hand side?
Correct. Yes, correct.
So the only impact you saw at all was on the right-hand side of the PCV, if you saw it at all,
That's correct. Yes.
not on the left-hand side.
No.
So do you have an opinion as to whether or not a bullet came from the left-hand side through the PCV into the valley and then into the building?
PVC. He keeps saying PCV. It's polyvinyl chlorate. It's not polychlorate vinyl, dude. It's PVC pipe. Come on.
Yes, my opinion would be that it may have possibly struck the right side of the conduit and then into the sheet metal.
But not the left side.
That's correct. Yes.
And so,
Oh, chloride. Sorry, polyvinyl chloride.
could you show us again where room number 24 is?
Right here.
And where is that impact site?
It's on this this west side right here.
And then is room 111 back on the east side of the fourth grade wing?
It is, yes.
And so could a bullet coming out of room 111 make that impact without impacting the PCV pipe on the left-hand side?
In my opinion, no.
So this guy, this expert, is here to testify that that shot had to have been fired from a place where Gonzales could have seen him and could have done something.
But could that same impact come from the position you saw the casings?
It could, yes.
And that's why you took pictures of it.
Correct, yes.
And this witness needed to go at like the front of the day, because by the time this, I know a lot of you watch this trial. I know a lot of you, watch this all day. How many of you caught this during the day? I'm guessing very few. And this is critical to the prosecution's theory. So
May I approach her?
I see somebody saying, caught what? Exactly. This guy is saying that it's impossible for that, that particular bullet impact to have come from somewhere other than a place where Gonzales would have been able to see him and engage with him. He's a critical prosecution witness, and everybody missed him. Everybody missed this because it's the prosecution buried this. There's judge on his cell phone, checking his stocks on the Facebooks. I'm not blaming him.
Okay, please be seated. Okay, again, we've taken a matter up outside your presence, ladies and gentlemen, so you may proceed. Mr. Turner.
After you found the defect in State's Exhibit 641 behind you,
The judge is like, I'm going to crush those candies. Hopefully he's not on like Tinder or something.
did you thereafter go inside room 24?
I did, yes.
And the State's Exhibit 642 show us the entry then into room
Yeah,
24.
It does, yes.
And tell us what we're looking at in Exhibit 643.
That's the entry door to classroom 24.
Yeah, 643.
That would be the interior. That would be facing the west wall, the same wall that the defect would have been on the outside.
And there's in the next exhibit, 644. What are we looking at here?
That's a close up of us pointing the camera up through the ceiling tile, and you can kind of see the hole from the inside of the classroom.
And State's Exhibit 645.
That's us up into the ceiling, through the ceiling panels, getting a close up of the interior side of that defect.
Thank you. Now, that was not all you did in the case, is that correct?
It's correct, yes.
And did you also have an opportunity to go into rooms 111 on that very first day?
I did, yes.
And at that time, were there still the remains of this shooting in that room?
Yes. When I got the time I got there, when I went to 111, the only body that was inside the 111 was the body of the suspect.
So somebody's asking, dumb question, why do bullets use lead in the first place? Doesn't that put even the shooter in danger of lead poisoning? First of all, you're probably not getting lead poisoning from shooting unless you're spending a lot of time at indoor ranges without any, sort of breathing protection, etc. But the reason why lead is used is that it's very dense. So there's a lot of weight for a small projectile, and it's soft. And so the softness is important, because when you fire a cartridge and the bullet then travels through the barrel, it gets compressed, and the compression allows it to sort of form to the shape of the of the rifling. So lead has a lot of features that make it very very favorable, and there's not really a good substitute for lead. So you said dumb question. It's actually a really good question, because this is an issue that comes up. People are like, why can't you use some other metal? Like, why can't you use steel or something like that? And the answer is that lead is really kind of perfect for it in ways that, like, steel isn't, iron isn't, silver definitely isn't, all of these things. So, yeah.
Okay. And does the body of the suspect show his relationship to his gun?
Yes, approximately, yes.
And does it show how he was dressed?
It does, yes.
So as to compare to eyewitnesses who may have seen a gunman?
Yes.
Going next to 734. And you can go ahead and go to 735 now. And I'll just ask you, we just saw 734. Is that a fair and accurate depiction of the man in black?
Yes, that's how I found him, yes.
And State's Exhibit 735, does that show him in relationship to a weapon?
It does, yes.
And would you show us where that weapon is?
On your monitor now, approach. The weapon, the rifle right here.
Okay. And about how far from his feet?
I'd say within less than 2 feet.
Okay. And moving now into room 112 from 111. No photographs. We have no photographs of that, but you did see it?
I did, yes.
You did observe it?
I did, yes.
And would you describe for the jury what you saw?
When you walk in the main entry door from the hallway, there was a lot of desks that were kind of clustered up, scattered around, and then there was a concentration of deceased bodies kind of in that the northwest corner of the room.
A concentration of deceased bodies?
Yes.
And were they adults or children?
There was children and one adult.
One adult and children.
Yes.
And were they clustered away from the door?
Yes. If you were to walk in the entry door, they were to the left in that corner to your left.
And were they away from the windows?
They were, yes. They were on the opposite side of the room from the windows.
That's the witness.
So they're ending off with, and this is horribly tragic, which it is, but that's not the basis for a conviction.
Is it Verena?
Yes, it is.
My name is Nico the Hood. I'm one of the lawyers representing Mr. Gonzales. I'm going to ask
Get to the mic, Nico.
you some questions.
Okay. Yes, sir.
You testified before.
Yes, sir.
Okay,
Yes,
so
sir.
you know how this works.
Yes, sir.
So are you familiar with the Hellfire trigger system?
I'm not, no, sir.
Okay. You never heard anything about it?
No, I heard briefly them talking about it. I wasn't responsible for those two classrooms as far as the crime scene processing, but I heard talk about it, but I'd never seen one or actually knew what it did. Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
In your duties as a ranger, have you done any training in firearms?
I have done some, yes.
You understand that there's some things you can put on a trigger to make it move faster and shoot faster.
I have heard that. I don't have any experience with it though, but I have heard there are some things.
But you have done tactical training yourself?
That's limited. I'm not more on the tactical side. I'm kind of a crime scene guy. I've done some, but very, very limited.
Do you do trajectory analysis?
I do. Yes, sir, I do.
Okay, so as part of your experience in trajectory analysis, you have to understand how to handle a weapon, how it's shot, how it functions to actually give a better opinion of your assumptions you're making, right?
Yes.
Okay, and when it comes to trajectory analysis, other rangers have testified to this. It's really an educated guess of what you're trying to put together.
Well, there's a little margin of error, but if there's a perforating defect in the surface and then a secondary one, then that's a good candidate defect for a flight path rod, and it'll give you a good ballpark estimate of some location of the shooter. There are still some margin of error.
Well, the fact that you said ballpark means that it's not exact science.
It's not exact. Yeah, there is a little margin of error. Yes, sir.
And well, other rangers said it's possible. They use a lot of words like possible, right?
Yes.
Okay. So we're talking about possibilities. Now, you've heard of a misfire. Have you heard of someone misfiring a weapon?
I have, yes.
And misfiring a weapon has to do.
No, it's not a misfire. Fuck. Misfire means it didn't fire properly. So typically a misfire is a dud, a hang fire, something like that. They're talking about like a negligent discharge or an accidental discharge, not a misfire. This drove me nuts.
With trigger control. You understand what trigger control is, right?
I do, yes.
Okay, so trigger control is making sure that your finger is in a safe position and not hovering inside the trigger guard, correct?
Are you referring to an accidental discharge or a misfire?
Well,
And the expert's like, yeah, what are you talking about? So when you've got the thing is that guns are designed to make it comfortable to put your finger on the trigger. But when you don't want to shoot, you need to keep your finger away from the trigger or else it can go off by accident. So this was one of the things that came up in Rust as like, where was Baldwin's finger during all of this?
okay, fair enough. Let's talk about accidental discharges then. Okay, what is indexing your finger on a weapon?
It's keeping your finger off the trigger.
May I stand up, Judge? Okay, so we don't have a blue gun, but I'm not gonna ask for one of theirs. So there's a trigger in a weapon, and we're talking about a handgun first, and then there's a trigger guard around the trigger, right?
Yes, that's correct.
And then and this applies to a long rifle or a handgun, correct?
It does, yes.
And so when someone indexes, if law enforcement or if anybody training with a weapon is taught to index, you are taught to keep your finger outside the trigger guard. And if this is my trigger, I don't want to be in the trigger. I want to be outside the trigger guard.
Yes, if you're indexing, then your finger should not be in the trigger guard on the trigger.
And so trigger discipline references not being lazy about having your finger, because you hand a child a gun, they automatically, most people, even not children, will grab that handle and then put their finger inside.
You hand a child a gun, I'm like, what? Are you kidding me? Nico. No. Do not talk about hand the child a gun in this trial. Like, sorry, dude. No.
The trigger guard.
I can't accurately say that, but that's possible.
An untrained person with not proper trigger discipline could potentially do this.
That's possible, yes.
And so many people that are not trained well, they automatically put their finger in that trigger guard, and that could create as you said, a misfire or an accidental
discharge.
Okay. And so there's no way for you to tell in your analysis of trajectory analysis whether somebody does an accidental discharge or whether it's an intentional discharge.
No.
Right. And so if we can we look at, I think, is it 636 and 637, the pictures you guys had? I think it's exhibit 636 and 637. Bill, do you have them? Or who does? Who doesn't show up?
I was doing 7.
What is the image depict? That's what we need to know.
You don't have the number on it?
No.
Oh, got it. It is, can I see the ones you have, 636 and 637?
They're probably up there.
May I approach, Judge?
Yes.
Right,
Yes.
and you could have looked behind the building too. I'm sure you looked behind it.
We searched that entire area, yes.
That entire area you searched?
Yes.
And you found one defect?
That's correct.
Okay.
Yes.
So back to my original question. If somebody made the claim that they were standing further down to the south side of the building, close to the east side, and that the murderer fired multiple shots at this person, you should have found more than one defect.
Yeah, well, I can't say that again.
Can we talk about probabilities?
Sure.
More likely than not, you should have found more defects.
It's probable, but again, like I said, there could have been.
It's so what he's saying is you would have found more of these defects, the bullet impacts, if the prosecution's theory is correct. And he's like, well, it's probable, but he doesn't want to give the defense anything. This is a fighty witness. This is a witness who's more combative, and so he doesn't want to give that away.
Where he shot over, depending on how he had the gun held, if he was and what the angle of the barrel. Something could have went over. I can't say he fired multiple. All I can say was that for sure, certainly was that there was one round fired in that direction. All I can say.
Well, one round went in that direction doesn't mean it was intended to go there, right?
Exactly.
Okay, so but my question is, bullets don't just disappear, right?
I'm not sure your question.
Well, I mean, but if somebody, I gave this example to another ranger. On New Year's, we're told not to shoot guns up in the air, right? You've heard that safety announcement,
Yeah, sure.
right? Why is that a foolish thing to do?
Because it can come down.
What comes down?
The projectile.
Right, they don't just disappear.
Yeah.
Right, that's what I'm saying.
Right.
So if somebody shoots multiple projectiles in this direction, there should be probably more defects than one.
Well, I mean, they could go over, and when they come down, they could end up inside the dirt, and we just don't see them. That's a possibility. I can't rule out.
But bullets don't.
This is the problem with the prosecution's case, is that it is now getting to the point of this is a possibility I can't rule out. And if the prosecution's case is getting to a possibility I can't rule out, then the prosecution loses, because the standard is the prosecution needs to prove things beyond a reasonable doubt. And that's a big deal, right? So if the best he can say is I can't rule this out, then we're into the Karen Reed situation of I can't rule it out. You got reasonable doubt. This witness is a reasonable doubt witness, and he's fighting on not this is what happened, but this is possible theoretically.
Loop, do they?
Well, there's a parabolic, once they come up, they're shot in a parabolic arc. So once they go over, they're gonna arc and come down. They could go into the ground.
If somebody's on the ground, if somebody makes the claim while they're on the ground that somebody shot at them from this angle multiple times, there most likely probably would be some defects on these buildings. Right?
There could be. Yeah, I mean, like I said, all I can certainly say is there was one. That's all I can say.
Just one.
Yeah. Anything else I'd be speculating.
Okay. And I don't want you to speculate.
Yeah. I mean,
And so if somebody is intending to shoot this side of the building and they had poor trigger discipline and an evil intent to hurt people, they could get over anxious and they could accidentally discharge up as they're coming across, because we know for sure there were many defects on this side, right?
yes, there were.
Have you heard of a ricochet?
I have, yes.
Explain to the jury what a ricochet is.
Ricochet is where the projectile strikes a surface and then usually at a low angle, and it ricochets off and continues its flight path past that point.
And so when a bullet,
A ricochet is a bullet bouncing, right? A bullet hits a surface and then skims off it, bounces off it, and a ricochet may or may not still maintain lethal force.
hits an object, and when you do this in trajectory analysis, that's called an intermediary object, right?
You're talking about the surface it hits?
Yes, sir.
Yes, it is.
That's right. And then that bullet can do something else.
Oh, yeah, yes, yeah.
Was there a laser trajectory done from the spot we're looking at in Exhibit 636 to that one defect?
There wasn't, because that defect was not a candidate to put a flight path rod in, because there wasn't a secondary defect for us to run a rod through and attach a laser to. So it wasn't a candidate for it.
Was not a candidate for.
Yeah,
Okay.
yes, sir.
So was that defect on the higher part of the building or the lower part of the building?
It was on the higher part.
And so if somebody on the ground said that shooter fired multiple shots at that person as they're on the ground, or at least standing on the ground, it's less likely that defect would be high up on near the ceiling, near the roof, right?
It depends on how they were holding the weapon and what the angle of the barrel was.
I said multiple rounds. Remember that? So there should be more than one defect.
Yeah, and again, all I can tell you is there was one. I didn't see any more than one.
Fair enough. Now we saw that picture of the suspect in Exhibit 734, I believe it was. You recall that?
I did, yes.
That person lying on the ground, and I'm not going to show that picture.
Okay.
That picture, that picture of that animal lying on the ground, that person is the one responsible for stealing those children, right?
He is the one that shot him, yes.
That's the witness.
Mr. Moreno,
So he passes the witness back, and the prosecution is going to try to save this. Let's watch.
Ranger Moreno. The weapon the gunman was using, you're familiar with it?
I am, yes.
And the round that he was shooting?
Yes.
What's the distance on those? How far can they go?
I would say at least 150 meters.
150 meters? Okay. And if they strike the dirt, would you be able to find it?
Probably not.
And if they're shot over the building, would you be able to find it?
No, probably not.
And on that exhibit that's in front of you now, to the left of that building, could you tell us what it's composed of? To the right of the building, excuse me.
Where the fence is?
Yes.
Yeah, I think that was the air conditioned HVAC units.
No, I'm sorry. Would you approach? Let me go. This is where the building was struck. Is that correct?
Yes, that's correct. Yes,
And all the way across here, what is this?
it's open field.
Is there any way you would recover a defect in an open field?
The probably would be very slim now.
And if shot above the building 24, was there a defect there that would have been recoverable by you?
Can you repeat the first part of the question?
Shot above the building, would you have been able to recover a defect shot above the building?
If it went over and into the grass, no, it probably would be very low to recover that.
And to the right of the building, do we have open fields also?
We do, yes.
And same question about likelihood of recovery.
Yeah, it'd be a low probability, same likelihood.
So he's basically saying, what if he missed a whole bunch? Okay.
Yes.
That's That's again a what if. It's not a proof beyond a reasonable doubt. It's a what
Back
if.
to our, may I post, Judge? Back to our hypothetical. If that same person that claims that the shooter from this position shot multiple rounds at them, and they're further down, you have this HVAC unit and all the fence that would be at the very least concealment, maybe even some cover for them, right?
For who?
Someone behind it, someone on the south side of the wall, I mean, of this building,
Oh, yeah, okay.
right?
Yeah, it's possible, yes.
Well, I mean, it's not possible that's there. This is in the way.
You're talking about the HVAC units just cover the.
Yes, sir. If in our hypothetical, if the person's behind it, they would have to shoot through the HVAC units to try to hit them.
Well, again, it depends on how they hold the weapon.
You got, okay, explain that to me.
How they're holding the weapon? Those HVAC units are cover or concealment. I mean, what does he think the guy's doing? Like holding it like this and shooting? Does he think he's got the I'm trying to envision the shooting stance, like the position that this witness is envisioning here. And so far as I can tell, this guy's got, like, he assumes that the shooter's got the gun on like a long stick and is using another long stick to work the trigger. Like, come on.
If the person, if they're holding it at the hip and the barrel's aimed up, they could get over those HVAC units fairly easy.
Well, unless you have to be 20 feet tall, right? I mean, what if the person is just regular height people? I mean, it doesn't lob. You can't. It's not a grenade, right? You can't lob a bullet. It shoots very direct, right?
No, not. I mean, the trajectory is based on how the weapon's hold. You can. Well, I've seen many shootings where they hit the weapon and fired high. A lot of their rounds were inaccurate because they had it at the hip and were shooting way high.
I'm not talking about inaccuracy. I'm talking about probability of hitting somebody because they're behind these HVAC units. If someone's behind this HVAC unit, they have cover from the HVAC unit, right?
They would, yeah.
So the shooter would have to, the shooter would have to move out to the right of the HVAC unit, or however they're holding it, to try to shoot that person behind the HVAC unit, right?
If they were behind the HVAC unit, I would think so, yes.
Well, in my hypothetical, this person is behind the HVAC unit, okay?
Okay.
Okay, so like you're behind the desk. Let's say that desk is covered and I wanted to shoot you in the leg. If that's true cover and can protect your legs, I can't shoot your leg.
Probably not, no.
Well, if it's cover, I can't because I can't see your leg.
Yeah, well, it depends on if it's hard or soft cover. If it's hard cover and it would stop around, then yes, you wouldn't be able to shoot my leg. If it's plywood or something or soft metal, then it would go through and you.
Just answer the questions. I feel like we need something where the judge has like a squirt gun full of, I don't know, like Wolverine piss or something that they can just hose a witness down when they get like this, right? You know, just answer the question. You know,
Could possibly hit your target.
So you don't know this yet, but we've already explained to the jury the difference between cover and concealment.
Okay.
So the material, this is concealment. This is not cover.
Right, exactly.
Let's assume this is cover.
Okay.
If I wanted to shoot your legs, I'd have to move around to shoot your legs, right?
Yes.
So same thing with these HVAC units. If there's someone behind the HVAC unit and I'm shooting from this place, I'd have to move around the HVAC unit to get line of sight on you to shoot you.
You would, yes.
That's right.
That's correct, yes.
And so if that happened and the shooter was further to the right, because in that hypothetical, that person is being shot at, we would see evidence of the person, the shooter, firing from the right.
It's possibly.
If someone made that claim and you and I were prosecuting that case, what evidence would we present to a jury that somebody shot at someone behind that HVAC unit?
I guess I'm going to answer your question.
Would we bring shells and shell casings? Because we're making a claim that someone took a shot at them and they had a line of sight. If somebody was further to the right, should there be shell casings here if we're making a claim like that?
There could be, but again, ejection.
Yeah, this guy said that the bullet range is 150 meters. Now, I mean, he's probably referring to like effective range where you're going to actually. Oh, shit. I just broke the ouchie stick. Fuck. I have to get a new ouchie stick or something. Oh, dang it. That sucks. That sucks. So, how did I break it? I was trying to set it down and it kind of hit this side from the side. So, shit. I got to see if I can replace that somehow or something. Fuck. That was not cheap. I think that puts the net over and under on the on this stream into a substantial negative amount of revenue here. So Is that obsidian? Yes. So that is, yeah, the obsidian broke. So that is sad.
Pattern analysis is not always accurate because if they manipulate the gun any kind of way, it can change that pattern. And if they're moving or the weapon's moving, then it can change that pattern. So it's possible, but I can't say for sure that that would be an indicator.
Are you aware that there were shells found on this side of the building?
Yeah, my recollection, there was some there, and there was some on the other side of the gravel driveway, I believe also that were marked.
What gravel driveway?
The one there, I believe.
No, sir, you're wrong about
Okay,
that.
okay, okay.
So it's just right here, right?
Okay.
Right on the edge.
Okay,
So that's
okay.
my point. So we found,
That's a misstatement of the law, of the facts.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, jury, what the lawyers say in their questions is
Not to be construed as fact. So therefore, if it differs based upon your recollection, rely on your own recollection. Go ahead.
thank you, Judge. And so as we recall, we remember that there are shells up and down this,
Yes, sir.
kind of up and down the edge of the parking lot, right?
Correct.
Okay, so if there are shells on the edge of the parking lot, would the shooter be on the right hand of the shells or on the left hand of the shells, knowing that you know what kind of weapon we use?
Normally it would be on the left-hand side.
And why is that?
Because typically that weapon, or the most common ejection pattern is usually to the right and slightly rear.
Right. So, and it's called the ejection port.
Yeah, it comes out of the ejection port, yes.
And so they've heard this already, but just to make sure you and I are on the same page, there's a long rifle with an ejection port. The magazine comes in, you chamber it, you have a trigger inside the trigger guard. Once you shoot, then the casing is discharged to the right, correct?
Yeah, when the bolt comes back, it's extracted, ejected, usually to the right and maybe slightly rear. Kind of from the, if you're looking at a clock, the muzzle would be 12 o'clock, the stock would be 6. Most of them are going to be at 3 to 4:30.
That's right. That's right. And so if the shells are here, roughly, I mean, they're a little bit, but there's a collection of them, you know that.
Yes.
Then you agree with me that the shooter is to the left of those shells, that shell line.
That'd be the most probable position, yes. Unless there was manipulation of the weapon, something like that. But the most probable position, if it was fired in a normal position, he would be to the left of that.
But there were no spent shell casings found out to the right in that open area, to your knowledge.
To my knowledge, no. Again, I didn't work the outside.
Okay.
I didn't work that. We went over to classroom 24 just based on some intel that there was the cartridge casings found out there. So we went out there just to make sure nothing was shot in that direction. Okay.
Thank you, sir. Pass the witness, Judge.
Do you have any evidence that the shooter in this case used this wrong trigger guard when he grabbed the gun?
Used the wrong trigger guard. What the fuck are you even talking about? Okay.
Is that the one that the defense counsel was referring
The
to?
misfire? Yeah. Do you have any evidence in this case that the gunman, that the shots he fired were misfires?
Misfires. Again, the prosecution doesn't know shit about what they're talking about, and they're trying their best. But yeah.
Are we talking about misfire? Because misfire and accidental discharge are completely separate.
Let me ask about accidental discharge.
Okay.
What's your definition of an accidental discharge?
It's when the gun was fired when it wasn't intended to be. Somebody hit the trigger when they weren't intended to hit it, and the gun fires.
Is there any evidence in this case of the gunman engaged in an accidental discharge?
Not that I'm aware of, no.
And would you go back to that exhibit that you showed the jury? No, when you showed the jury. I believe the defense repeatedly said, if there are casings here, and you said you didn't recall that, is that correct?
I recall when we were walking, seeing some flags for casings where I just don't remember the exact precise location. I do remember casings being in that area.
Is this pavement?
Yes, it is.
Do you recall seeing any casings on pavement?
Not that I recall, no.
Okay, and how many times did the defense attorney ask you about casings being in this area on the pavement?
Judge, I didn't say that. I said the grass area. Put mine in the
He pointed right here, didn't he?
My understanding was he was talking about the grass area. That's
This part I laughed at so hard. Let's watch it again. We're gonna take it down to 1 speed because the prosecution tries to point at he tries to throw shit at the defense lawyer, and his own witness isn't having it.
I recall when we were walking, seeing some flags for casings where I just don't remember the exact precise location. But I do remember casings being in that area.
Is this pavement?
Yes, it is.
Do you recall seeing any casings on pavement?
Not that I recall, no.
Okay, and how many times did the defense attorney ask you about casings being in this area on the pavement?
Judge, I didn't say that. I said the grass area behind the pavement.
That's
He pointed right here, didn't he?
my understanding was he was talking about the grass area. That's what I was assuming. He was talking about.
Oh, they're like, didn't he say pavement? And the witness is like, no, I thought he was talking about the grass. So, no, I don't know what your problem is here.
The grass area.
Well, let's take a look at what the evidence shows, okay?
Sure.
And now the prosecutor's got to back off in a big way because, yeah, that was a bit of an embarrassing moment for him, and I mean, well deserved. So, yeah. Also, the place where I got the Macahoodle has gone out of business, so now I have to look at other ones, and yeah, that we'll try to figure that out.
Are there any casings on the pavement?
No, not that I see. Again, like I said, they were marking flags, and we obviously can't stick a flag in asphalt. So they're on the grass.
And it's exhibits 112, 113, 111, those have been identified as being casings. Those are not on the pavement.
You're talking about the ones that are marked 12, 13?
Yes.
Yes.
And would you show the jury how far up the red flags go?
Looks like they go up kind of where the asphalt meets the concrete.
Would you approach the photograph and show the jury how far up those red flags go?
They go up to your little past that drainage, where the drainage goes under the sidewalk, and then they come across.
And from that position, is there a line of fire to the defect that you found in room 24 that you've been talking about today?
Yes, sir.
Witness.
And evidence of an accidental discharge could be a defect high and away from any targets that could be shot at.
It could be, yes.
Right. So if you have evidence of a bunch of damage, like on the west side of Robb Elementary, and then you have what we call a one-off, right? A one-off high and above any potential target, that could be evidence of an accidental discharge as someone is swinging a rifle.
Yeah, I can't rule that out.
Right. Pass the witness, Judge.
And it could be evidence of somebody shooting from the hip.
It could be, yes. I can't rule that out either.
Who's got the burden of proof beyond a reasonable doubt? Because if you can't rule out what could be or couldn't be or what, then that goes to the defense. It's got to be proven beyond a reasonable doubt. And yeah.
And have you said that you've seen?
Also, like, why is the judge letting them play tennis here? Because normally the judge is like, you had your direct, you had your redirect, it's done. But I guess maybe Texas allows this?
People shoot high in these kind of shootings?
I have, yes.
So you do have evidence that people shoot high in active shooter situations?
Yes.
Pass the witness.
No further questions, Judge. Thank you, sir.
Yes.
No, sir.
No, sir.
All right, sir, you're excused. The rule has been invoked. Don't discuss the case till you're aware the trial's over with, all right? Thank you very much.
May I have a point of clarification at the bench?
Okay.
All right, so now we get this guy.
Doctor, would you tell the jury your name, please?
Garrett Phillips.
And am I correct, you've been here since first thing this morning?
Correct.
Appreciate you being here.
And doctor, can you tell the jury about your mustache? That is a fine mustache, and yeah.
Could you tell us what you do for a living?
I'm the Deputy Chief Medical Examiner at the Bexar County Medical Examiner's Office.
And I win beard and mustache competitions.
And what is the Bexar County Medical Examiner's Office?
The Bexar County Medical Examiner's Office is a county office statutorily established by the laws of the state of Texas to investigate sudden, unexpected, and unnatural deaths within Bexar County.
And what is the Deputy Chief Medical Examiner?
Fundamentally, the Deputy Chief Medical Examiner is one of the staff medical examiners, which is to say, for
All right, skipping along a little bit. This guy is mostly here to talk about autopsies and so forth, but we're going to jump over to around here. Today is 11 years of my active shooter OIS. My sergeant sat in his vehicle while partner and I went to the threat and neutralized it. Sergeant will always be a coward. That sentence is worse than any criminal charge. Absolutely. Cross-examnesia. Thank you for what you've done there, because and you're not wrong. Like, how do I put this? Larry Niven has a set of Niven's rules, Niven's laws. Larry Niven is a science fiction author. He wrote RimWorld, other things. So one of them is think before you take the coward's choice. And basically saying that, like, in your old age, at some point, you are going to have to, you're going to have to sort of live your life with regrets, like all of those regrets. And so, like, if you cowered out, if you chicken out, then you got to live with that. You got to live with the fact that you are a coward and you are, a wuss and a piece of garbage. So, yeah.
You described for us, and let's start with the one, were there, did Mr. Garcia receive wounds?
yes,
And were any of those wounds, did they cause death?
yes.
And what type of wounds caused Mr. Garcia's death?
The most significant wound in this case was a gunshot wound that entered the back. That wound ultimately, most significantly, went through both lungs as well as the thoracic vertebral column, injuring the spinal cord. After having traversed both lungs,
All right. So why did they call this guy? To talk about horrific injuries suffered by children. That's why he's there. Now, literally nobody disagrees that the kids died, and nobody disagrees that Gonzales didn't shoot them. So the relevance of this, to me, seems pretty freaking minimal, but the judge is letting them get away with it, so they get away with it. He also talks about range, and basically he establishes that some of the children were shot from very close distances because of things like, powder burns and so forth. Powder burns is that when you shoot a gun, there is unburned and still burning powder that comes out at the same time, and it extends to 3, 4, 5 feet, somewhere in there. And during that range, it can leave marks that are distinctive. So, yeah. This is relevant solely to give their families their day in court. It's not proper. Yeah, this is not... yeah, well, then it gets worse. We're going to look at the last witness briefly. And the last witness is also on, just a testifying shirt because, they don't want her face being shown. But
that we raised previously. I don't know if you'd like us to approach her We're just gonna talk about the events that day. What,
Well, if you'd like us to approach.
Come on up.
All right, so they go up to talk to the judge.
don't tell me the address, it's the town and the county.
Uvalde, Texas.
Okay. And I'm gonna take you back to the day of May 24th of 2022. On that day, did you have a child that went to Robb Elementary?
Yes, I had one.
So already we know exactly why this witness is called. She is 0 minutes into her testimony, and literally you can sum up her testimony here with, I had one child who went to Robb Elementary. This is one of the mothers who, of a child who was killed in this. And she has, we're not watching this. Karate Cat Mom, we are not watching most of this. Literally, all she comes up to testify to is, I sent my child to school, my child died, and that's it. And I'm like, are you freaking kidding me? Like, is that your testimony? And I just want to go, we're going to skip her testimony. We are going to go to the last seconds of just to the cross-examination.
At the end of the day, about 9ish.
When was her birthday going to be? That's the question that the prosecution ends on, is when was her birthday going to be? It's disgusting what the prosecution does here. Let's look at the defense response. This is the defense cross, and I think the defense did a really good job.
I'm so sorry for your loss. That's terrible.
Again, state her name.
Ileana Amaya Garcia.
Thank you. Pass the witness.
Say her name is the last question,
Garcia,
and pass the witness.
I'm so sorry for your loss. That's terrible. And I pray to God for his peace for you and your family. I'll pass the witness.
No more question, John.
Okay,
Defense just gets up and says, I this is terrible what's happened to your family, and I pray for peace for you and your family. That's it. That's all the questions we have. Disgusting what they that they drag her out here. And yeah, this is a prosecution that gave into community and victim pressure to force a trial. Officer Gonzales isn't the only coward in Uvalde. You're not wrong. This is cowardly shit. This is gross. And the thing is, I went into this trial expecting that I'd be dunking on Gonzales and his cowardice and whatever else. And instead, I'm like, why are they bringing this? This seems so freaking unnecessary. This seems so cruel to the families. Like, have the courage not to bring stupid charges if you don't have the case. And I don't think they've got the case here. I think this is just, I am mad. I am mad about what they're doing here. Like, you have got to be kidding me. Really mad. Anyway, we're going to read the super chats, and then we're going to wrap up We've been at this 3 hours, but I'm going to say I am really mad. And I think after this, I am going to go see if Mrs. Runkle is still awake. See if we can snuggle up and watch something, like watch a show, snuggle with the puppies. Because I am fucking mad. Like, I am mad about this. And I give the defense credit for not losing their shit. Right? Not losing their shit. I see people saying, can we have pup swoops? We can have pup swoops. We'll do this one. The dog who is disappointed in me because I gave him celery. Okay, let's read the super chats. Surprised the fire department isn't making you invite them to watch. I actually invited the fire department because they phoned me. Like, the fire chief called me up and was like, I have some questions about your flamethrower. And I was like, if you guys want to come out, and if you guys want to try it out, like, if you want to try the flamethrower, you can. And they have declined. Throw a barbecue and invite the fire department guys to film. Fair. I am probably going to also throw in a little tribute to Paul Harrell. And the tribute will be like, I'm going to buy like a thing of ribs. And I'm going to flamethrower the thing of ribs and see if it's edible. So I'm Canadian who loves your streams. Keep up the good work. Thank you so much. What is it? Friendly reminder, Runkle hates super chats. Thank you, Selena. Or Celine, rather, or Selene. Runkle, I embrace your back pain, love. I'm in agony right now. NHS workers, I feel your pain. I have a shooting pain up this side. Friendly reminder to feed your pets a treat. Yeah, I'm just going to snuggle them. Did you get to see any sharks on your trip? I got to see sharks. I saw white tip reef sharks. I saw black tip reef sharks. I saw hammerhead sharks. Mrs. Runkle saw a hammerhead shark, but she only saw it from behind. She didn't see the hammerhead, so she was a little disappointed about that. But she got to, like, Mrs. Runkle had a moment where there was a group of like 5 or 6 black tip reef sharks all swimming in like a little circle, and she was snorkel floating right above them, and she had a wonderful time there. So yeah. Guy's got a perfect snooker 8 hit. That chin is gold. Okay. Sorry for my Scottish humor. I don't get it, but that's fair. Tough Cookie, thank you for the 10 gifted memberships. Lucy Fair, thank you for the gifted membership. Much appreciated. Darren Doob, I know it's like Irish. I just can't. Yeah. Hi, Ian. Great coverage. Sent you an email Wednesday. I will look for it. What is it? I made a live. Love you, Ian. Thank you. No, not the OG stick. Yeah. I'm going to buy some glue and see if I can get it to, yeah. You've met me, you know how to pronounce mine. I am forgetting right now, and I feel really bad about it, but yeah. So, OG Stick Fund, thank you. Oh, just a shard, you can replace that, just bang in a new one. It's part of how Macahoodle are designed. I don't know where to get a new one, so maybe I'll have to see about that. So I'll have to look into that. For the Ouchie Stick Fund, thank you. Considering DeShaney versus Winnebago County Department of Social Services, how is it even possible this is a trial? I think there's a very real possibility that at the end of this, the defense moves for a directed verdict of acquittal, and that they get it. So that is a possibility. Unsure if there's enough horses in Texas for them all. Fair. All right. Let's wind it up here. We'll do another swoop here. Whoops, wrong one. Came in late. Oh no, what happened to the Ochi stick? I broke one of the teeth on it. And yeah. Michigan Farm Boy, I appreciate the coverage, and here's a small donation to the Ouchie stick recovery or replacement. I commiserate with the firearm irritation in these trials. Yep. And Karate Cat Mom, thank you for being you. Thank you. Yeah, I didn't want to cover the mom. We could have gone through the mom, like, all through it, but I freaking hate it. Okay, Smarty, any rats since living in Alberta? I have not seen a rat in Alberta. I have seen rats since I moved to Alberta, but that's because I've gone on trips to places that have rats. So, yeah. Sorry about the Macahoodle. If those things were invented by my ancestors, thank you for your coverage. They are a neat weapon. I'm also planning on getting a shark tooth sword one of these days. So, yeah, that's going to be... that'll be a thing. Defendant had a duty because he was employed by the school district and created a special relationship giving rise to the... I get it. I get the argument. And, yeah, caps lock is a thing. But I don't think they're going to get a conviction here. I guess is the thing at the end of it. So I don't think they're likely to get a conviction. I think they're trying, but yeah, we'll see. We'll see if they I don't know. I don't feel like it's likely. So all right, let's wrap this up here, and we will my package hasn't arrived yet. So what do you call it? All right, I'm just trying to see if the package arrived, because yeah. Let's see. I'm looking at my security system here. Do I have a package sitting on my porch? No package. Okay. So I won't get to show you guys the thing that is coming. But we will I'll show it to you on Monday there. Book Dragon says, thanks for not covering the mom. That was so wrong of them. I was so fucking pissed when I saw it. Luna Dewdrop says, for the demonetization of your stream, you're my favorite. Thank you so much. I was so mad when I saw that. So mad. Like, I ranted on Twitter when I saw it, where they were, when I was like, are you freaking kidding me that they actually, that this is what they did? I was like, you have got to be joking, right? You have got to be kidding me that this is what they're doing. And nope, that's exactly what they did. They dragged the mom out specifically for the purpose of being like, are you sad that your child is dead? I'm like, are you kidding me? Like, are we really that freaking cruel? The jury knows, right? The jury does not need to have that explained to them. And the fact that they brought that out, I have no words other than just to say I am super pissed that the prosecution thought that was okay. There is literally no evidentiary value to it. I just, it makes me so mad, so mad. All right, and while I'm so mad, I'm gonna sign off here because yeah, the horses was referring to these people being quartered. Ah, fair. Nearsake, thank you so much for signing up and being a member. I really appreciate it, much appreciated. And yeah, that's how they ended the week. Me and Mrs. Runkle are probably going to watch something lighthearted. I think we've got like the next season of Peacemaker, which is funny. So yeah. Anyway, thank you guys for watching. I hope this has armed you with knowledge. I see you next time. Probably see you Monday. So good night, all.